I want you to think back to 5th grade. Now, I see some young faces. That might be last year. That could be 50 years ago. But I want you to think back to 5th grade. Anyone remember 5th grade teacher's name? Throw it out there. Wonderful. Yep, lots of names. Good. So it's not too far away that we've forgotten 5th grade teacher's name. My 5th grade teacher's name was Mrs. Anderson. And being honest, I don't remember a ton. Two major things stick out when I think about 5th grade. One is Mrs. Anderson taught me how to sew. I still to this day am able to sew because of Mrs. Anderson. It's one of my buttons popped off a shirt, and the other day I sewed it back on. I was like, Mrs. Anderson, what a legend. Grateful for her in that. And the second thing was she was a massive Kansas City Chiefs fan. Like that, just like before Tay Swift got involved, like she was a Chiefs fan. She let you know. Those are the two memories I have of 5th grade. I want you to think about now about a typical field trip in 5th grade. When you went on a field trip, I don't know about you, but field trips were a big deal for me. I did not enjoy school much, so getting out of school, going on a field trip was really fun for me. And I remember getting on buses and the chaos of a bus singing 99 bottles of soda pop on the wall because we went to a Christian school and you weren't allowed to talk about beer on walls. But like just the fun and chaos of it all. 2 years ago, my wife and I joined our 5th grade son on one of his field trips. His class was going to the California Science Center down in LA, and the 5th grade class was getting on a bus and heading down there. And traffic time, this is about an hour and a half commute downtown and then an hour and a half commute back. So it was a full day. It was like an 8 to 5 type thing. And I knew what I was signing myself up for. I don't go to many field trips. I think that might have been my first one. But I was like, I'm in. I'm going to be that dad who like does one field trip. And so my wife warned me. She's been on many field trips. She was like, just prepare your soul. This is going to be challenging at times. I was like, how hard could this be? And so we get on the bus, and my wife and I are sitting next to each other, and I get on this bus, and as soon as I'm on, I notice, one, how eerily quiet it was, because the vast majority of the 5th graders are on their phones. And before we even start rolling, I look over, and the young girl sitting across the aisle from me on the bench seat next to me, she's on Instagram, and she's watching a woman apply makeup to her face. And at first I was like, I assumed it was an advertisement of some sort. But over the next hour and a half, I watched every couple of minutes, looked over, and she watched women putting makeup on for an hour and a half there and an hour and a half back. At one point on the trip there, I hear some chaos and commotion. I'm like, this is what I was used to. This is what I was thinking. But the boy is yelling, delete it, delete it. And so I quickly try to figure out what's going on. And it turns out that a bunch of the kids with their phones, they were taking candid shots of other kids on the buses. And they were waiting till a kid made like an awkward face. You know, if you've ever seen a photo where you weren't ready for it and you just look wild, right? They were waiting for moments like that to catch candid shots of other kids, and as soon as they did, they'd send a text to the whole group chat, the whole class. And so one of the kids had a picture of himself that looked really awkward, and it was sent to the entire class, and he was begging the girl to delete the photo. As soon as this happens, it just changes the bus, where most of the kids that now I'm observing are awkwardly like kind of sitting there with like almost like a grin. They're trying to look as normal as possible so that they don't get caught candidly on a photo that gets sent to the entire class. At one point, one of the teachers walks down the aisle, and I just said, hey, are they allowed to be on cell phones? And she does this. As if like we can't do anything about it, or who knows, I'm not sure. And I was like, I could do something about this very quickly. Like give me a bag and I will have every single phone in 1 minute. Like just give me permission. I've had a complicated relationship with technology for probably 15 years, but something broke in me that day 2 years ago. Like I get to see my kids with their tech and our own struggles as a family, but I had not seen what some of you see more clearly. Some of you you're like, I'm a 5th grade teacher, Brad. That's my everyday. But I had not entered that world yet. And when I did, I came out, it shaped me significantly, and this has become like a deep passion of mine for the last couple of years. And so I've spent a lot of time reading. I've read a lot over the last decade in this area, but the last 2 years I've really tried to focus down and go, what would this look like to actually see things change? I've, as I said, a complicated relationship with technology. It's a love-hate relationship with technology. And there's a chance that's probably why you're here. It's just like, man, there are things I love about tech, and there's things that scare me about tech. It's kind of this both and. I love some things about technology. I love singing karaoke with my daughter on our iPad. Like, I love that. I love watching golf YouTube videos with my son. I love being able to FaceTime my family when I'm out of town. I love being able to voice note friends who live in other countries and to keep up a relationship that I only get to see them once a year, if that, and I'm able to continue an ongoing relationship because of texting and voice notes. I love listening to audiobooks when I work out in the mornings. I hate working out, but if I can get an audiobook, I'm fine. I love that I can order a book on Amazon in the morning and it can show up at my door that night. I love technology in so many ways, and yet I also hate it. As a pastor who does quite a bit of premarital counseling over the last decade, I hate that oftentimes when it comes to a husband and wife challenges, that phones get mentioned. One spouse feels very neglected from the other, or they both do, and one of the major culprits is this thing. I hate that generally young men can spend hours and weeks and months and years of their lives advancing on a video game and think they're actually making accomplishments in the real world when they're not really going anywhere. I hate that young girls, like the girl on the bus next to me, is watching hours and hours of content a day that's reshaping her mind about what the image of beauty is to be. I hate the insane accessibility of pornography that's destroying men and women, boys and girls. I hate a lot of things about technology, but I love it. And so today, we're going to talk about this mess. It would be really easy if everything was bad with technology. And this would be a 10-minute seminar. I'd be like, all right, no more, we're done, let's go. But that's not the reality. There are beautiful benefits to technology, and we live in a complicated world with tech. And so it's important for us to kind of go, how do we hold on to these things when there are things that we hate, but there's also beautiful gifts from it? And so I want us to start by just defining what I even mean by screens. As we talk about parenting in the screen-filled world, it's kind of more complex than even just the device itself. It is the device. It's smartphones, it's tablets, it's laptops. Generally, any glowing rectangle is a part of the screen system. But it's more than just the device, it's also the platforms. It's social media. It's YouTube, it's streaming, it's group chats, it's AI chatbots, it's online gaming worlds, it's that. And then it really is the environment we're living in. You can't go a day without screens. It's inhabited our whole lives. And so when we're talking about screen-filled world, we're talking about the devices and we're talking about the platforms themselves. We need to acknowledge that something has fundamentally shifted in our culture, in our world. Jonathan Haidt, in his book, The Anxious Generation, I'm going to be quoting from quite a bit. He's had a pretty big impact on me in this sense, thinking deeply about technology and the harms and some of the benefits of technology. But he was one of the first ones that helped me understand what has taken place in this great shift in our culture around screens and not. And what he does, he calls it the great rewiring of childhood. That for all of human history, kids generally played. And that was a normal part of growing up. And what he calls, he said it was the play-based childhood. And while this was a gradual decrease, he kind of traces it to 1980 to 2010, where this kind of came to a close, gradually declining, was this play-based childhood, that it had existed for all of human history. Some of the basics were just unstructured and embodied play. My dad, I was born in 89, so I was a part of this end of the great rewiring. My dad would talk to my brothers and I constantly about his childhood. And the stories were unbelievable. He'd be like, yeah, we wake up and summer day and you just leave around 7 in the morning and you'd come back before it got dark. We would ride our bikes up through the hills. Grandma, Grandpa, they had no idea where I was for 12 hours a day. I was like, what? That was his childhood. That was many of your childhoods. Like not many of you, several of you, your childhoods. But you talk, they were like the glory days. It was like, this is what it used to be. Most of us, if we grew up after 1980, our childhood was hearing stories like that from our parents while we're playing video games or while we're sitting at home watching TV. It used to be unstructured and embodied. It used to be face-to-face with other kids, and you were free to wander, you were free to pretend, free to fail. But what took place in 2010 to 2015, Jonathan Haidt calls a phone-based childhood. All of a sudden, childhood that used to be free, wandering, roaming, turned into a sitting still and watching. Rather than being creative, it became a consuming. And often led by an algorithm. Kids will watch YouTube for hours, and they don't even search for anything. They don't even know what they want to watch. The algorithm just tells them what they're going to watch. And then it's an increasingly led to isolation and loneliness. Because instead of playing with friends, you're by yourself. Even if you're online talking to somebody while you're playing a game, you're often alone. This is what Haidt calls the great rewiring of childhood. He says that we've gotten it backwards. This is key to his book, The Anxious Generation. He says what we've done is we overprotect in the real world while we underprotect in the digital world. And this is one of the greatest problems that we're facing. We overprotect in the real world, but we underprotect in the digital world. So what this looks like is, hey kids, you're not allowed to play in the front yard because you're probably going to get kidnapped. But here's the World Wide Web. You have access to talk to millions of strangers. You could with just a quick Google, you could see videos of sexual chaos, violent chaos, whatever it is. You have full access to it all. But here's the good news. At least you won't break your arm. We're going to protect you from the real world while don't care about what the digital world does to your soul or your mind. I want to give you just one example of this. My kids, both kids went to public elementary school near our home. Overall, we're really, really grateful for the school. We love the faculty, the teachers, staff, lovely people. And our experience overall was great. No school is perfect, always challenges. But one of the things that killed me about the school was they were a part of this overprotecting in the real world while underprotecting in the digital world. I remember my son had come home around second grade, and he said these words. He said, "Recess is so boring." And I was like, "What?" Like, I lived for recess. Like recess was why I went to school. Like, I wanted nothing. I'd get in at 8 a.m. and I just looked till 10 a.m. was recess. Like that was my existence as a kid. Like, I need to get outside. And so I said, why is recess, what do you mean? How's recess boring? And he's an active kid, plays sports, he does all the things. He goes, they don't really let us do anything. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, well, like we tried to play tag today, and they said we're not allowed to play tag because somebody could get hurt. I was like, of course someone's going to get hurt. Like, you play tag. Like that's what you do. But schools all over the country are now saying you can't play tag because somebody might scrape their knee. And it's like, yeah, I've got scars to prove it. Like, you will scrape your knee, and guess what? You're gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be fine. So we're overprotecting the real world, going, no, you're not allowed to play tag because somebody can push and somebody's gonna get hurt. But we don't care. Here's a laptop, second grader. Have a good time. So Jonathan Haidt, in his book, and I know you're not going to be able to read this is why I had you scan for the slides. This is a sign in an elementary school at UC Berkeley, and this school at least allows you to play tag, but here are the rules for tag. There's like 12 rules for tag. There was no rules for tag when I was a kid. It was just like, tag, you're it. That's it. These rules are like, hey, you're not allowed to touch with a whole hand. You're only allowed to tag with a finger. Things like that. It's just if there's any disputes, we have to solve it rock, paper, scissors. Because God forbid we taught kids how to resolve conflict in any other way. I mean, this is we're so worried about the real world that we say no. And yet, 2 months ago, my daughter comes home from 5th grade and says, Dad, I've told you about our Friday dance parties at school. I was like, yeah. Every Friday, a couple of the teachers, they put a boombox on and they do a dance party, which I'm like, cool. They're not allowed to play tag, but they can at least dance where they are. I was like, that's cool. She was like, Dad, the songs they play are really bad. It's like, oh, come on. There's no way. And by the way, some of this content will be mature, so we warned you. I said, what do you mean? What do you mean bad songs? Give me an example. Who are they listening to? She was like, well, the two people that constantly are recommending for the songs are Kendrick Lamar and Cat's Eye. And I was like, okay, I know the first, I don't know the second. And I was like, give me one of the song names that you guys actually danced to today. She was like, oh, the girls love this song called Gnarly. So they played Gnarly by Cat's Eye. So I Googled the lyrics. You ready? Don't worry, I have some stars to... Making beats for a boring dumb bee. F gnarly. Don't talk to me, you're gnarly. I'm not, S is gnarly. Jealous of my mansion. Yeah, the view is F gnarly. Everything's gnarly. Hottie like a bag of Takis. I'm the S, gnarly. Avi, they be trying to copy. I'm the S. We can't play tag because somebody might get hurt. But we dance to songs like this. My daughter goes, well, they do bleep out the bad words. I was like, thank God. So the whole song is just a bleep, 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 bleep. How do you dance to that? This is the chaos of our world. We don't see any issue with this. It's like, oh, it's not going to harm them. They're not going to physically break an arm listening to Cat's Eye, Gnarly. So it's okay. Here's the laptop. Here's the device. The digital world is fine. It's not actually going to impact you, but we need to be really careful because you might get kidnapped, you might break a leg, you might scrape a knee. This is what's crazy. So Jonathan Haidt, in his book, The Anxious Generation, he doesn't just tell stories, he also gives a lot of evidence. These are some of the effects of the great rewiring that he has seen. He's a social scientist, a brilliant dude. And as you'll see in these graphs, I'm just going to show a few. These graphs is 2010 to 2015 is when the major shift takes place. And this gray shift in all these maps, this is where you're going to just start seeing increases. And this first one is the major depression among teenagers. Girls, an increase of 135% since 2010. Boys, 161% increase since 2010. The percent of U.S. anxiety prevalence. So we all think we're all getting more anxious, and we kind of are a little bit, but look who's getting the most anxious. It's younger generations. It's ages 18 to 25 and even younger. This is the UK teens, self-harm episodes. These are 10 to 12-year-olds who are hurting themselves. 2010 to 2015. So look, if you just cover this up, I mean, things are just, little changes each year, but nothing crazy. 2010 takes place, and things begin to skyrocket. For girls, there's a 364% increase since 2010 of 10-year-olds to 12-year-olds harming themselves. For boys, it's a 155% increase since 2010. The U.S. suicide rates for ages, these are 10 to 14-year-olds taking their own lives. One is too many. But from 2010, 2015, we see this increase. For boys, it's 66% increase since 2010, and for girls, 117% increase since 2010, okay? We are seeing a rapid transformation take place in 2010, 2015, and the main question is, what happened? And there's a lot of people try to say, oh, it's this, but Jonathan Haidt goes, along with many other scholars, it has to be connected to smartphones and social media. A few things that took place in this time frame. 2009, Facebook introduced the like button. Remember how boring Facebook was before people could like your comments and tell you you're awesome? It used to be a thing. You just post it and you'd be like, I think 1 million people enjoyed that. And now you post it and you get 2 likes and you're like, I guess only 2 people enjoyed that. That happened in 2009. 2010, Instagram launches. I told my kids this last night. They were like, we thought it always existed. I told them that Sarah and I got married in 2011, and it was right after our marriage, after we got married, that people started hearing about Facebook or Instagram, so we downloaded Instagram. And my kids could not, they were like, you were alive before Instagram was invented? I was like, I know. These grays, man, they're serious. So 2010, Instagram launches. So does Apple's iPhone 4 with a front-facing camera. So now you can take selfies all day long. You don't have to keep swapping it. You can just see your beauty 24/7. In 2011, according to Pew Research, 23% of teens own a smartphone. Common Sense Media in 2016 has 79% of teens owning a smartphone. So that's just in several years, the increase of teenagers having access to smartphones, massive, okay? So the question is this cause or correlation? Jonathan Haidt, Jean Twenge, all these men and women, these scholars who are saying, yes, it's smartphones and social media that's causing a lot of the chaos, the increase of depression, the increase of suicide. They're going, it's primarily social media, it's primarily smartphones. People that argue against them go, you're just seeing correlation. This isn't necessarily caused by these things, okay? Now, Jonathan Haidt has done tremendous work to prove that, no, it is causation. It's not just correlation. So just to give you context for correlation versus causation. Causation means this causes that, okay? So Jonathan Haidt is arguing social media smartphone access to kids is causing an increase in depression, anxiety, suicide, all these things. Others go, no, there's just a correlation. Yep, we just randomly saw an increase of smartphones and social media. There's also an increase of suicide, depression. We can't necessarily link those two together. That's what some people argue. Now, one of the ways you can prove whether something is causation or correlation is through tests, through studies, through research. So to prove that something is actually caused by it and not just a correlation, you can do tests where you take that thing away from a people or a society or a group of people, or you increase that thing, and if you increase it and depression and anxiety continue to increase, and then you take it away and depression and anxiety decrease, we have a very good reason to believe that it is causation, not just correlation, okay? And Jonathan Haidt on his website, he has over a dozen academic research studies that show that when we take students, kids, whoever, and we take away social media and smartphones for a prolonged period, their depression, desire for suicide, and anxiety decreases. And then when we take another sample, poor kids, they just tell them keep using it more and more and more, and ask them, their anxiety and depression increases, okay? Now, there's stats on that, but let me tell you a story, and this story wrecked me. And I think most of us will do, yeah, it seems obvious. I read this book several years ago, Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. He's in the UK, he's a medical doctor, 4-pillar plan. Basically just kind of a health and wholeness, not a Christian dude, but kind of a health wholeness book. And as a doctor, one of the chapters he talks about is how important it is to take Sabbaths from screens. And he opens up the chapter with Devin's story. He says that specific day as a doctor, things are just crazy always at the office. You have so many appointments, and he said the temptation as a doctor is just to get people in and out as quickly as possible. He said that day I had a line of people that were waiting. One appointment went too long, and now I'm tempted to just kind of rush everybody else just to get back on track. And so that was his plan, and then in walks a mom with her 16-year-old son named Devin. And the mom, doctor said, hey, why are we here today? And mom said, this past Saturday, Devin cut his wrists. And the doctor said, was this on purpose? Yes, it was on purpose. And mom said, we went to the ER that night, and the psychiatrist told us that we needed to come to you to get a prescription for antidepressants, Prozac. And so can we get a prescription for that? And Dr. Chatterjee, he said he just felt like he had to pause for a moment. And he said everything in him wanted to just write the prescription and get him out of the office because that would be very easy and just he needed to get through things. But he sits down and he looks at Devin. He says, Devin, do you have social media? Devin's like, yeah. He says, do you use it a lot? He's like, yeah. He said, do you use it at nighttime in your bed? He's like, yeah. Yeah, I use it on Facebook, Instagram, texting. Dr. Chatterjee said, okay, I'm going to ask you for just 1 week to turn your phone off an hour before bedtime. Around 9 o'clock, your phone's off for the rest of the night. Try this for 1 week. If things aren't any better, come back in 1 week and I will write you a prescription for Prozac, okay? And the mom's like kind of nervous, but the doctor's saying it, whatever. They walk out of the office. 6 months later, Dr. Chatterjee gets a letter from Devin's mom. He is a different human being. Thank you so much for caring about him. Just turning his phone off an hour before bedtime. That child could have been on Prozac for the rest of his life. And again, we're not anti-medicine. We're not people struggle with depression. Yeah. But is there a causation here? Probably it seems to be the case. And there are countless stories like this. When you have secular doctors in the UK and all around the world going, let's try this. Let's try social media fast and see if you get better. And then it works over and over and over. Then we have really good indication to believe that it is causation, not just correlation. Jonathan Haidt, in his book, he talks about the 4 foundational harms. Now, some of you guys are like, are we going to get practical? Session 2 is going to be very practical. Session 1 is just kind of helping us understand what's going on and create the need for us to want to do the practical stuff. So Jonathan Haidt talks about 4 foundational harms that have really taken off in the social media age, smartphone age of this great rewiring. The first one is social deprivation. And we're going to look at each one of these for a little bit longer. Social deprivation, less time with people. We're on phones constantly. So we're not connecting with real people. The second is sleep deprivation, disrupted sleep patterns, fear of missing out, notifications. We're not sleeping as much as we should be. Third is attention fragmentation, constant interruptions leading to a loss of focus. And last is addiction, compulsive use driven by reward-seeking loops. Since his book, he actually has added another harm, and it's opportunity cost, because most kids spend over like 7 hours a day on their phones, and he's like, that's a harm. And can you imagine what you could do with 7 redeemed hours? Just remarkable. So I want to look at all 4 of these, but this is one of the reasons why I invited everyone in our church to come and not just families and parents, because these 4 things, most of us hear those in this room and we're not like, oh, my child. We're like, me, right? And so this is for all of us. This is not like, hey, adults, we have this all figured out really well. Let's fix our kids. This is like, hey, we're all struggling. We've all experienced these harms, and our kids are experiencing them. What are we going to do about it? So let's look at these real quick. Social deprivation, harm number 1. Again, from Haidt's book, daily average time with friends in minutes. Again, you see some movement before 2010, down, up for these ages 15 to 24. But once 2010 hits, things just drop quickly. Because I don't need to be with my friends anymore because I can text them. Or we can play together on the video game. And we all know that relationships are challenging. Like, thank God when I was in 5th grade, I didn't have the option to have a cell phone on a bus. Because I would have been on it. It's way easier to do that than to build relationships, to work through conflict, to talk and make new friends. That's hard. Real life is hard. Digital world, very easy. I can find friends, I can talk to friends, I can do all these things. This is why so many young people are terrified of even making a phone call. Job interviews. You talk to people who do job interviews. It's like younger generation, man, it's hard to even make eye contact at times with kids. These kids like won't look you in the eye because they're not used to it. They're used to looking at screens and phones. And so we see social deprivation decreasing significantly since 2010. And as a Christian pastor, someone who teaches regularly that we are made in the image of a relational God, relationships aren't optional. It's not like, oh, you know what, bummer, we have less friends, less time with friends, less time connecting with people. It's okay. No, you're made in the image of God. The less time you have connecting with people, the further away you are from imaging the reality of who God is and how He created you. So less relationships in your life is going to create a devastating impact like harm. The second harm is sleep deprivation. What's happening at night? A lot of kids are allowed to have their phones for an alarm clock in their bedrooms, but what they end up doing is in bed, scrolling, texting constantly, and sleep is not as important. My son plays some video games, and one of the video games he plays, he showed me this a few years ago. You could see his buddies, they play online, and you can see when kids log in and log out, if they're your friends. He showed me one day that some of his friends, this was in 4th grade, some of his friends were logging out of the games around 4 a.m. on school nights. So 4 a.m., they're playing. Mom and dad are probably asleep. Grandma, grandpa, whoever it is, they assume kid's gone to bed or something. Kid's playing in his bedroom or living room, whatever, till 4 a.m. and then has to wake up at 7 a.m. for school. School's already hard. Try doing it on 3 hours of sleep. It will destroy you. Whether it's video games or just texting. I mean, we've all been there where you're texting somebody and you're like, oh, I don't want to be the first one to like, hey, it's 10 o'clock and I don't want to be the one to be like, I'm going to bed. So you just keep texting. That can turn into 2 a.m., 3 a.m. very easily. So sleep deprivation is taking place. Dr. Leonard Sachs is another family doctor. His book, The Collapse of Parenting, is quite remarkable. And he talks about the overdiagnosis of ADHD. Since the 70s, it's about 1% of kids had ADHD in like the 70s, and now it's about 18 to 19% of kids are diagnosed with ADHD. Now, again, I believe ADHD is real, but I do think it's probably overdiagnosed, and Dr. Sachs is arguing that. One of the things he says for proof of why ADHD is probably overdiagnosed is because of the connection of the actions of sleep deprivation and those that have ADHD. He says this: the sleep-deprived child will have trouble paying attention, not because he has ADHD, but because he's sleep-deprived. Sleep deprivation mimics ADHD almost perfectly. So think about this. That child who logs off of video games at 4 a.m. shows up to school the next day, and guess what? He has a really hard time paying attention. Of course he does. Everyone would have a hard time paying attention. When you're sleep-deprived, you will have a very difficult time paying attention. It may cause you to act out. It may cause you to do all sorts of things. What's happening oftentimes when kids are struggling, and again, this is sleep deprivation. If your kids get 9 hours of sleep a night and other things, then it's not that. But he's specifically talking about sleep deprivation. Your kid's getting 3-4 hours of sleep a night, and this is the problem. He says, here's the worst part of it. When a doctor sees the kid, oh, they're not paying attention, teacher says, they keep doing this, this, and this, they give them medicine, and then he goes, this is the scariest thing. The medicine actually works. And so they assume, well, we found the problem. No, you didn't necessarily find the problem. The medicine can act as a speed, and if you have 3 hours of sleep and you take Adderall or whatever it is, it's going to help you. The problem is we're not getting to the source of the issue. And so we're treating symptoms. We're not getting to the root of the problem, okay? And so it's important that our kids are sleeping. It's important that we as adults are sleeping. I read a book years ago by Dr. Matthew Walker. His sleep, he's like one of the world's leading sleep scientists at UC Berkeley. And man, that book wrecked me. I used to take pride in like, I'm a 5-hour a night kind of guy. And he's like, no, you're not. You're dumb. You basically operate, when you're sleep deprived, less than 8 hours generally. You almost become like a drunkard who doesn't think they're drunk. You don't even have the ability to assess your own mental health when you're sleep deprived. So you think you're fine. The same way someone who's drunk is like, I'm fine to drive. He's like, that's how most of the world is living when they're sleep deprived. That book is fascinating. He said, for so long, we didn't know what the benefits of sleep were. He goes, and now we just can't stop discovering all of the benefits. We need sleep. Our kids need sleep. Third harm, attention fragmentation. These devices, social media, they are engineered to hijack our brains. And again, as adults, we're not like, yeah, I've seen that in my kid. I've seen that in me. You ever just keep reaching for your phone? You pull your phone out, you're like, I don't even know why I wanted this. Like there's something to it. They've engineered it to where it never ends. You remember back in the old day? Like Facebook, normal website, you would scroll to the bottom and it would end. The website would end and you'd be like, well, I've done everything here. Next. Now there's the infinite scroll. It never ends. It's unbelievable. That's not an accident. YouTube, Netflix, they're not like, oh man, we're having an issue. It just keeps loading more. This is engineered to keep you as addicted as possible. Netflix is obnoxious. You literally can't turn on the home screen of Netflix without it showing you something. It just starts playing stuff. And, well, I wasn't interested in that, but now I am. And then your TV show ends, and you were like, time for bed. Next episode starting in 7, 6. Is like, well, the Lord has spoken. We should probably watch this next one. I mean, it's chaos, and we do. And then another episode, and another episode. Like, this isn't an accident. Netflix isn't like, oh man, what happened there? It's engineered to keep you as addicted as possible. And it's jacking up our brains. It really is. Many of us acknowledge, man, it's harder for me to focus in a normal conversation, on reading, on basic tasks at work, because it's constant, right? Chris Hayes, in his book, The Siren's Call, he says, attention is the substance of life. Every moment we are awake, we are paying attention to something. Ultimately, these instants of attention accrue into a life. What you pay attention to, we use the phrase, pay attention. We pay for it. It's our attention. And YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and Netflix, all of it, what they're doing is they're trying to grab our attention because there's money when they have our attention. And so it's really hard to focus on other things when they're fighting for your attention, and they're way smarter than you and I. And billions of dollars have been invested to do this. Nicholas Carr, in his book, The Shallows, this was written in 2010. Nicholas Carr says this: over the last few years, I've had an uncomfortable sense that someone or something has been tinkering with my brain, remapping the neural circuitry, reprogramming the memory. My mind isn't going, so far as I can tell, but it's changing. I'm not thinking the way I used to think. I feel it most strongly when I'm reading. I used to find it easy to immerse myself in a book or a lengthy article. My mind would get caught up in the twists of the narrative or the turns of the argument, and I'd spend hours strolling through long stretches of prose. That's rarely the case anymore. Now my concentration starts to drift after a page or two. I get fidgety, lose the thread, begin looking for something else to do. I feel like I'm always dragging my wayward brain back to the text. The deep reading that used to come naturally has become a struggle. Whether I'm online or not, my mind now expects to take information the way the net distributes it, in a swiftly moving stream of particles. Once I was a scuba diver in the sea of words. Now I zip along the surface like a guy on a jet ski. And I think most of us go, yeah, I've experienced that. But like it seems harder just to focus, and it's not an accident, it's not by chance. Michigan Medicine Health Lab did a study and found that the average teen receives more than 200 app notifications a day. Do you know what that will do to your brain? Is it, well, it's just on vibrate. That doesn't matter. Cal Newport, he says, this would be like somebody knocking on your front door 200 times a day. Try getting anything done. You sit down. Hello? Oh, okay. Hey, front door. Hi, just wanted to say hi. Urgent news, CNN. You go, you sit back down, you're trying to talk to your spouse. Knock. Hey, just got a new email. Hey, we experience this. Kids are experiencing this 200 times a day. How can you pay attention to anything? You can't. Our attention is fragmented, and the fourth harm is addiction. Obviously connected to the attention fragmentation, but these devices and social media, they've been engineered with the same psychological levers as slot machines. But like you show up to Instagram, you show up to Facebook, you're not sure if it's going to have the red notification that somebody liked it yet. But there's a constant unknown mystery that brings you back over and over. You refresh the slide. You just saw 100 videos on YouTube, but they weren't good. Let's see what's next. Slide it down. We are so addicted to our devices. Adam Alter, in his book Irresistible, he talks about Tristan Harris. And Tristan Harris, he is one of the major figures who was in the movie Social Dilemma, if you saw that in 2020. Tristan Harris was working for Google, helping design some of the tech. And while he was working there, he started to feel very uncomfortable about what it was doing to society. And he was part of the problem. And so he begins talking to Google and going, hey, I don't think this is right. I think we need to rethink what we're doing. The way we're designing things to basically hold people's attention and get them as addicted as possible. We should really think about the ramifications of that. Like, it works great for our budget this month. What's this going to look like for society in 10 years? So he was one of the first kind of whistleblowers going, this is not okay. And so Adam Alter, in his book, he says, according to Tristan Harris, a design ethicist, the problem isn't that people lack willpower. It's that there are 1,000 people on the other side of the screen whose job it is to break down the self-regulation you have. Again, as adults, we've experienced this. What about a 9-year-old? Like at least for many adults, we've had decades of practicing and exercising self-control. A 7-year-old hasn't. Jonathan Haidt is an atheist. Quite a few of these authors are not religious or atheist or whatever. And here's what Haidt says about social media in Anxious Generation. He says, from a spiritual perspective, social media is a disease of the mind. That's why I love this guy. Like, he just, like, let's just call it what it is. It's a disease of the mind. So, how should we respond as parents? This is the major question. Is like, okay, hopefully you're feeling like, okay, Brad, that was very devastating, and we're all in a lot of trouble. The good news is we can actually see change, okay? And God has put you, if you're a parent in this room, God has gifted you your child and has primarily called you to lead your child. Even if Google never changes, even if Instagram never changes, Netflix never changes, Apple, Android, they never change, you can do something about your family's culture, right? Your primary responsibility to your child is not their temporary happiness, but their long-term flourishing. I think this is the biggest mess when it comes to tech and devices for kids. The kid is crying, the kid is begging, the kid is whatever, and as parents, we don't like seeing our kids in distress. So the easiest solution is, okay, one more show. Okay, fine, you can have an iPhone for Christmas. Okay, fine, everybody else is doing it. But we need to understand that our primary responsibility for our kids is not what's just going to make them happy right now, but their long-term flourishing. Like when I look at my kids, I rarely am looking at them like, okay, how can I make Tuesday the best day of your life? I'm going, how can I make sure that when you're 20 and 30 years old, you're flourishing as a human being? And that's probably going to mean that you might not like how Tuesday went. Because if you always love how Tuesday went, you're probably going to fail miserably in your 20s and Thursdays. 20s and Thursdays? 20s and 30s. Our job is to care deeply about their long-term flourishing. Jean Twenge, in her book, 10 Rules for Raising Kids in a High-Tech World, she's a psychology professor at San Diego State University. She wrote this book, came out last year, not a Christian. I always say that just to help, I think sometimes Christians think only Christians are talking about this, and I was like, no, I think more Christians need to be talking about this. But I read her book, 10 Rules for Raising Kids in a High-Tech World, and I laughed out loud when I read rule number 1. You know what it was? You're in charge. Hey parents, newsflash, you're actually in charge. I know many of us have forgotten this. It's like, well, my son said he needs a phone, so here it is. Hey, you're in charge. Your kid is not in charge. You are, and you need to understand that God has given you that responsibility to lead your children. I will not allow Instagram or Apple to tell me how I need to raise my children. God has given me a specific calling to raise my son and my daughter for their flourishing. A family is not a democracy. Americans, we love democracy. A lot of us have turned that into our family. We're like, we're going to have a family vote. No, we're not. We can vote on some things. We can vote on vacation or whatever. We're not voting on when kids are getting phones. It's not a democracy. Parents have been given authority by God, and that authority, which is like such a dirty word in our culture, that authority is for their good and for their flourishing. Many parents have used their authority in horrific ways and is demonic and will be judged harshly by God. But authority is a gift that God gives parents that says, lead and love these kids well. And we need to remember that we parents are actually in charge. Doesn't matter the temper tantrums, doesn't matter what everyone else is doing. It doesn't matter even if your Christian friends are doing different things. God has called me, I'm in charge. My wife, we're in charge of leading our kids. Now here's the hard thing. That means we need to model by example. We need to model healthy tech use. I think this seminar would be so easy if I was like, all right guys, the kids are all problems. Let's correct them. You keep doing whatever you're doing. No. This is going to be the hardest part of the seminar. You and I probably need to change our tech use because our kids will often follow in our example. If mommy and daddy are constantly on phones, guess what? How dare you tell them not to be on their phone? This is all they know. We lead by example by not being addicted to our phone, by putting it away, by making eye contact, by not having it constantly going off. We lead by example. Occasionally, I'll have parents ask me when they find out that both my kids read a lot. I've had multiple parents over the years ask me, Brad, how do you get your kids to read? And I remember the first parent that asked me that, I was so confused. I was like, how do we get them to read? Like, I don't remember ever teaching a seminar to my children, like, hey guys, we're going to be a family of readers. You must read. Here are the benefits. I don't remember. And then it was after the second parent asked me how I get my kids to read, I was like, oh, Sarah and I read. That's the secret sauce. They grew up in a home where they just saw books everywhere. They grew up in a home where mom and dad read at the end of the night and don't watch TV. So they thought it was normal for a very long time until recently when they're meeting kids and they're like, I had the privilege of driving home a couple kids. It was my kids and some other kids. And that listening to their conversation was one of the funny, I wish I would have recorded it, but I'm glad I didn't. But they were talking about summer reading. They're going into school, different grades and stuff, but same school. And one of the kids says, "Oh, these summer reading books are awful. I'm on the first page. I can't even get through it. I don't know what it's about." My daughter goes, "I loved that book." My daughter read her summer reading book the first day of summer, and she loved it. And then she read the extra credit summer reading book the second day of summer, and she loved that book too. I didn't say, "You will read your summer read." I actually didn't read as a kid. I didn't start reading until I was like 19 years old. I grew up in a home that did not read. I didn't read my summer reading books. Never. I got through all of kindergarten to 12th grade without ever reading a book. I know. I'm making up for lost time. That's why I read so much right now. We grew up in a family that didn't read. So parents get home from work, you watch TV. That's what we do. You lead by example. You get home, they see you on your phone, you see you on your tablet, they're going to go, this is what normal is. You have TV off, you have phone off. They're going to go, oh, this is what we do. We lead by example. We also avoid hypocrisy. Now, this is challenging because there are some things that mommy and daddy do that kids don't do, and that's not hypocrisy. I drive a car, my kids don't. That's not hypocrisy. So there's some things around rules with tech that I'm allowed to do that they're not allowed to do because of age limits. Totally fine. But I think a lot of parents, when they realize the pain and harm it's causing for kids, the first thing they do is, all right, kids, we're changing your lifestyle, but they don't change their lifestyle. And it needs to be a both and. And one of the major ways is we just have more fun away from screens. I was going to show photos yesterday. I just had this idea of like showing photos of my kids smiling outside. And I just was going through, search outside my kids and just tons of photos. And there's the smile where it's like this. And then there's the smile where it's like, this is the greatest moment of my life. But most of those smiles take place outside. You're never going to see a kid on a screen like living it up. But outside, one of the pictures I had of them was when they were younger. I was trimming trees in the front yard, and they had taken all the tree trimmings and built like a little fort. And they looked like the happiest things I'd ever seen in my life. You're not going to see that on a screen. Screens are easier, but we need to go, hey, we're going to have fun outside. Now, this is one of the biggest challenges for us as parents. What's easier? Just sit inside on the couch. It's just way easier. One of the things I try to do, and I don't do this perfectly. I don't do any of this perfectly. I hope that's clear. But one of the things I've tried in the last couple of years to do, and I've never told my kids this, and so they're listening, and they're going to use this against me probably for the rest of my life. But here's it. When they ask, can we go outside? I try to every single time say yes. Even though most of the time I'm like, let's just chill. I had a hard day, man. I had 6 meetings today. Like outside, there's bees out there, and it's like whatever it is. Like what if we led with, let's be outside. Kids want to go outside, we're going outside. I might even just go out for 2 minutes. And then I just kind of sneak away, and they just keep playing. But a few weeks ago, we don't have much of a backyard, but we've got a little grass front yard, basketball hoop, some swings in the tree, and all that kind of stuff. So we spent a lot of time in our front yard. And a neighbor drove by. I don't know him too well, but he lives like 4 houses down, and he just slows down. I was playing with the kids in the front yard, and he yells from his car. He goes, "Do you ever work?" And I'll be honest, I was so stoked to hear that. Like I work a lot. I think this week I actually stupidly worked over 60 hours. Like I work. Don't worry about me being lazy. But to hear that from a neighbor, what he's like, you're always outside with your kids. And I was like, oh, yes. Like I want more of that. We need to lead by example. We need to have fun away from screens. Last couple things, then we'll take a break. That was when my kids think back in their childhood, I want them to remember my eyes, not the back of my phone. I'm convinced that as my kids, your kids grow up, if you're in a gospel community, you're in a small group, what often happens, it's so easy in small groups where people just start talking about how awful their parents were, and we try not to do that. But it's like, my parents ruined me, they did this, they did this, they did this. I'm certain in the next decade or two, when adults are going to be talking about their childhood, the vast majority is like, I never saw my mom or dad without this thing in between us. And one of my deep goals in parenting is that my kids would be sitting there going like, whoa, that's not my story at all. Like, I don't remember that being the case for our family at all. Would that be a goal that we have? So how should we respond as a church? A few things. Some of Jesus' hardest words are for those who harm little ones. Jesus in Luke 17 says, Jesus said to the disciples, offenses will certainly come, but woe to the one through whom they come. It would be better for him if a millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the sea than for him to cause one of these little ones to stumble. These are some of the most gnarly words from Jesus, and they're against anyone who harms little ones, vulnerable ones. The tech industry, phones, they're harming kids. And Jesus isn't like, oh, that's okay. They probably didn't mean it. He's going, oh, judgment is coming for those of you who hurt little ones. It's not a 7-year-old's fault that he's addicted to a screen. Not his fault at all. But it is somebody's. And we can't blame everything on the tech companies. Some of it's our fault. So we need to be very careful about the harm we're helping cause. As a church, we have 2 major callings. First calling is the Great Commandment, Matthew 22. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the greatest and most important command. The second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. The Great Commission is Matthew 28 at the end of the gospel. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe everything I have commanded you. This is the church's calling. This is why are we doing a tech seminar at a church? Like, Brad, leave this to other people. The reason we're doing a tech seminar for parents at a church, because of the Great Commandment, the Great Commission. We are called to love God with everything we are and our neighbor as ourselves. So it is our duty to love our children, our city, the men and women that God brings to us, to love them, and to love means to do what's best for them. And then the Great Commission is to make disciples of all nations. Now, what's a disciple? A disciple is someone who's learning to apply the gospel to every area of life so they can enjoy and obey Jesus in every area of life. This includes technology. I believe you can no longer make a healthy disciple unless you're discipling them around their technology. Because a disciple is applying the gospel to every area of their life. And now in 2026, technology is a major part of all of our lives. And I'm not saying get rid of all of it. I'm saying we need to be deeply intentional and thoughtful about how we're using it and how we're helping men and women love Jesus and pursue Jesus in all of it. So you can't make healthy disciples anymore. You can't disciple your children well if you're not talking about screens. They are being undiscipled. We must be thinking deeply about this, and this is the church's opportunity. Families are desperate. When I start talking to parents about the stuff that I've read and the things that we implement in our family, most of the time they're like, it's possible? Like, it's possible. Like, it's really possible for there to be end times of screens and the kids don't freak out. Like, the opportunity is massive, and we have something better. We can actually offer them Jesus. Jesus gives us a better way of life. And so one of my deep desires for this seminar is, one, yes, for our church, but as our church grows in health, that we would overflow and that the city would change with their view of technology so that we can more fully enjoy Jesus and obey him in everything. Okay, we're going to take a little break. So session 1, primarily looking at the challenges, the great rewiring, where we are, where we've come from, some of the foundational harms that many kids are experiencing these days, and primarily linked to smartphones and social media. The fascinating thing about those who disagree with Jonathan Haidt, Jean Twenge, all those, and go, it's not causation, it's just correlation. One of Jonathan Haidt's constant remarks is, then tell me what's causing this. Like no one else has other hypotheses, which is fascinating. It's like we see all these changes. It's like, okay, fine, you disagree that it's smartphones and social media. Then tell us what it is. And they're like, well, it's hard to, it's like, yeah, that's the problem. And I think most of us were like, okay, it's probably this. And so instead of just looking at the negatives, I really do want us to now spend some time going, well, what's a better way forward? What are actual practical things we can do to see change in our own lives, in our families' lives, in our church, in our city? And so there are really three big changes I think we need to make, and then we're going to look at some rules of what it would look like to do this, but three changes we need to make. Here's the first. We need to change our apathy. I think many of us look away because it's easier, and our kids are the ones who pay for it. When I talk to parents, some are like, wow, Brad, this is so helpful. Yep, we're going to start doing this. Some parents are just like, that just sounds hard. And I'm like, it is. Like, please make no mistake. This is hard. What I'm inviting you to do is hard. But you know what I think? What we're currently doing is harder. Like it may be easier day to day, but it is much harder in the long run. And so we need to put our apathy to death. I do think many of us, like as parents, one of the biggest struggles, when you go to any restaurant, now what do you see? You see kids on screens. Why? Because it's easy. It's like you used to have to teach your kid to sit still for an hour and a half. You don't have to do that anymore. They will stay still for 3 hours if you give them YouTube. And we're just like, and again, I want to be really careful, and we'll talk more about this in a bit, but like, I'm not trying to I don't want to create a culture of judgment. Any judgmentalism? I want this always to be a safe place to where if there's a kid sitting in this room on a screen, that we're not like, bad parents. No, I have no idea what their story is. They may have a rule 1 hour a week, and that kid's living it up for this hour. And they're on way less than my kids are. Like, I don't ever want to be like, here's what we all think about tech, and if you ever see a kid, I'm not saying that. So even I try my best at restaurants to be like, okay, let's hope for the best for this family, okay? But why is it so common? Why, when my kids were younger, would random adults stop by our table and go, wow, those kids are well behaved, no screens, good job, mom and dad. It's like, you're like, I'm awesome. It's like how crazy of a world we're living in where that takes place. And so we need our apathy to die. It's going to be harder, okay? Let me tell a quick story. And I've got permission from all my kids to tell these fun stories. My daughter was about 2 years old, and my kids did not sleep well as babies. It was bad. Some of you, they're like, oh, baby's here, and they sleep 12 hours. Like, God bless you. But that was not our story at all. And finally, around 2, daughters started sleeping well, and then there was a moment where it just kind of went south. I remember there was a specific Saturday. Saturday is generally Sabbath. Today, I'm breaking my Sabbath, but Saturday is generally Sabbath, only day that we'll sleep in a little bit, just take it easy, work, all the things. This Saturday, I remember, this is back, 10 years ago, she woke up at 4 a.m. And I was like, nah, that's not happening. Like it's Sabbath. And so she's up and she was fussy and crying and all the things. And I had just discovered this thing called Kids YouTube. It was new, at least new to me at the time. And nothing could be wrong with something called Kids YouTube. So I, at 4 a.m., let her come sit by the bed, and I gave her Kids YouTube. I woke up 3 hours later, and she was still sitting right there watching Kids YouTube. And I was like, I feel awful, but a little amazing. Like this, that's wild. Guess what happened the next morning? 4 a.m. And she was watching like My Little Pony or something. So she comes in the room and goes, ponies. 4 a.m. And I was like, okay, ponies. Day after day. It was like 2 weeks straight. And it's like, you feel dirty, but you're like, I don't want to get up. Like, that's so early, and I'm not, like, I already wake up early, but that's just too much. And like, so we started noticing behavioral stuff and chaos, and it was like, this is not good. And so one morning, she gets up at 4 a.m., and Sarah and I decided no more phone. And she comes in, she goes, ponies. And I go, honey, we're not doing that anymore. Go back to sleep. And she said, yes, Father, and she walked back to her room. Of course not. Chaos erupts. Ponies! Like the whole thing, right? I mean, just chaos. We hold our ground, thank God. It was a miserable few days. And she went back to waking up around 7 a.m., and we got through it, and we were like, never again. Never again. The problem is many of us never get out of that cycle. All of us get into that cycle at times. Again, Sarah and I have not done this perfectly. We have learned a lot through trial and error. A lot of our tech stuff has been like, okay, we try to think through it, we do it, we evaluate, like, ooh, that wasn't good, and we take it back, and it's miserable for a couple weeks, and then it gets good. Like, we're constantly doing that, okay? But we need to kill our apathy and think, oh, parenting should be easy. It's not easy. It's challenging. And in many ways, I think it is harder, at least in this realm, because now they know that they can access ponies on a device anytime. Okay, so we need to put our apathy to death. The second thing is we need to change our defeatist mentality. I think so many of us, man, I talk to parents, I talk to people, I talk to teachers, and I'm like, well, this is just how it is. Get used to it. It's 2026. This is the world we live in. And I as a Christian go, no, it doesn't have to be. But we do not need to let these harms continue for our kids. My son started a new school 2 years ago for middle school, and we love the school, really, really grateful for it, private Christian school. It's been a significant gift. My wife and I both went to that school back in high school, so it's weird dropping him off at the same school, and love the school, but within 2 weeks of him being a new sixth grader there, he'd come home, and he said almost something identical to when he was back in second grade. He said, Dad, I really don't like nutrition and lunchtime. I was like, how is this? That's the best part of school. What's going on? And he said, all of my friends just sit on their phones for all of nutrition and lunch. And at that time, we'd given him a phone, but it was a dumb phone. It had no access to internet, no games, nothing. The only thing he could do was text mommy and daddy. That was it. And so guess what he does? Like any kid would do, starts begging for a phone. Like I'm the only one who doesn't have one. So I sit there at nutrition and lunch, and they're all just playing video games or scrolling TikTok. None of them are talking, and I'm just sitting there all by myself. Yeah, it's very lonely. That's very hard for a sixth grade boy. So at that time I'd been reading quite a bit on this kind of stuff, and so I had also heard that Los Angeles Unified School District had made a change of no phones in classrooms. Praise God. Praise God. Along with like 20 other states. I mean, God's doing stuff. Like the change is taking place. It is remarkable. But the private Christian school our kids were at wasn't one of those. And so I emailed the administration and just said, hey, would you, I was the guy that, I was that annoying guy, but I was like, can we sit down and talk, and we need to make some changes. And I said it as well as I could, just, I would love to discuss technology and phone use in the classrooms, all that stuff. So I sit down with one of the administrators. I bought them a copy of Anxious Generation. I highlighted passages and I did all this stuff. Don't ever tell somebody to read a book that you want them to read. Buy it for them, show them. Yeah. Anyways, so I said, look, I made my case, like a 15-minute pitch, stats. Here's what's happening. Here's all the things. And then I said, look, I'm so serious about this that I'm genuinely considering, even though we love this school, pulling my son out of this school and putting him at a local public school. Our home public school, we know from other families that go there, they have tampon dispensers in the boys' bathrooms because anybody can have a period these days in California. And they also celebrate Pride Week every year. And I told the administrator, I said, look, I know that those would be challenges of discipling my son through that chaos, but the chaos of devices, smartphones, and social media during school is worse than this for me. Like, this is way easier to disciple through. I can disciple my kid through this. Like, this is easy. Hey, gender's real. Boys have penises, girls have vaginas. Like, that's easy stuff. God created marriage between a husband and a wife. That's easy stuff. Yeah, it'll be hard. There'll be challenges. You might get bullied for having these views, whatever. That compared to everyone all day long scrolling through their phones, this is hard. And so I said, look, this isn't like a threat, and you don't need my money, and you don't care if we're here, but I just want you to let you know, like, this is serious. So will you please consider, will you talk to administration? I'll come in, I'll do talks, whatever you need to see this change take place in the school. It felt very clearly it wasn't going to happen, and I was very discouraged. But I just kept emailing. I was that obnoxious. Any news article, like something came out, this school district in Vermont, they started doing it, all the teachers are happier, all the kids are happier. I'm like, look at this. I'm just like, no responses back. I'm just like, hey, look. Toward the end of the school year, my wife and I, we get emails that went to the whole school, all the parents, and it was a survey about kids using phones in schools. And I was like, I've never filled out a survey in my entire life. This thing, I wrote a book in my survey, and I just was like, praise God that you guys are thinking of this. Just here are more stats in case you need them. Like, don't listen to other parents who are wrong. Like, just like, please, for the love of God, we need it for emergencies. No, you don't. If there's a school shooting, the last thing you need is your kid to be on his device rather than listening to teachers. I mean, just chaos, right? So please, for the love of God, please. Last summer, we got an email saying the school will no longer allow phones from bell to bell. Yeah. I literally just started weeping. We have to fight against the defeatist mentality. It's like, this is just how it is. And I don't even want to pretend like maybe there were 300 other teachers and parents doing the same thing. Maybe. I didn't hear about anything. I don't know. I don't care. In fact, I've told my kids, I'm like, don't tell any of your friends that I'm the guy. like this will ruin all of your friendships. Joke on me, though. The kids are happier. Go figure. They actually talk to each other. Whoa. They can pay attention in class. Oh my gosh. Less disciplinary action on teacher. Like, this is unbelievable. There was a viral video that went, some high school teacher one day. It was like their school had finally taken phones out. And he was like, this has been the best week of teaching my entire career. He's like, was it this easy? I've been pulling my hair out for years trying to figure out what's wrong. It was this easy? We just pull phones out? So we need to fight against the defeatist mentality. Whether you're going to change the government, I don't know. We can still fight for that. And people like Jonathan Haidt, Gene Twenge, they're doing remarkable work, thank God. You can change your family. You can change your life. And today what we're doing is we can change Restored LA. Like, this is why we're doing this, is that culture would be created. And we wouldn't go, well, people are just going to do what they're going to do. I'm going, no, they're not. God has given us responsibility to act. And so we're going to take that responsibility, we're going to take that authority to bring about flourishing, okay? So the last thing is that we need to change is our lack of a collective plan. Cool, great, but what? Like, what's the plan? What are we doing? How do we help create a culture where it's more normal to see kids running out on the grass than it is to see them on their phones? How do we create a culture where parents are able to take kids out to restaurants or hang out on a Sabbath without phones? Or how do we do that together, okay? That's why I want us to spend the rest of our time this morning looking at a rule of life. Now, some people freak out about the word rule. We're like, we hate rules. It's funny. I thought we all hated rules, and then I don't know, 5 years ago, Jordan Peterson comes out with a book, 12 Rules for Life, and it's the #1 international bestseller ever for everyone. I'm like, oh, people seem to like rules. That's really interesting. So we don't like rules that we think are unnecessary or meaningless that are going to hurt us. We actually crave rules that are going to help put structure on our life, that are going to help us flourish. And so for centuries, Christians in monastic communities, if you were with us on Tuesday night for our church history class, we talked about the monastic movement that kind of began at the end of the 3rd century and then kind of took off in the 4th, 5th, 6th century. When these monks and the early desert mothers and desert fathers were moving out of the city and creating these monastic communities of trying to follow God outside of the city, what they would do is they would oftentimes create a rule of life. They would go, okay, how are we going to structure our days? How are we going to structure our time so that we can flourish together as a community? When do we eat? When do we pray? When do we do this? How do we deal with this kind of conflict? All these kinds of things, right? Now, a rule of life is still really important, I think, for us today, and I have my own rule of life and different rules that I follow, but my deep desire is for us is to get a rule of life around technology and screens collectively as a church. Like, I don't think change is going to come simply by individuals trying to make their little changes. There will be little overlaps and overflow, and God can do stuff. But when real change starts taking place is when a society, when a culture, when a group together goes, let's commit to this. So that, Brad, when your 6th grade son isn't the only one, when he's the only one without a smartphone, we look at all the other families at Restored and go, oh, that's actually what we do here. He's no longer the only one. There begins to be a culture. Oh, you guys turn your phone off at a specific time. Yeah, we all do. We're not all up till midnight scrolling. But like, what would it look like for us to create this rule that's going to help us, shape us, become the type of people that Jesus wants us to be? So, a rule of life for tech and screens at Restored LA. I have 2 practices for everyone, whether you're in a family or have kids or you don't, and then 3 practices for families. Okay. Now here's the thing. I have over a dozen practices for my own personal life with tech and screens. So if you hear these 5 and you're like, I want more, I was like, I will give you more. But I think for most of us, a good starting spot is a few that we can master. And when we get those figured out, then we can move on to more. And so what I want to do is kind of give these 2 major rules and then invite us as a church to say, what would it look like if we all practiced this together? Okay? So 2 practices for everybody, 3 practices for families. Here's practice number 1. Phones go to bed before we do and wake up after we do. Okay? So this is rule number 1 for everyone. You don't have to have kids. You be single. You could be married without kids, whatever it is. But this is a practice I want to invite our entire church to take up, that phones go to bed before we do and wake up after we do. Now, what does it mean? It means that we do not end the night. The last thing we see is the phone and conk out and wake up, grab the phone, check breaking news, email, texts, and start our day. As I process this with the elders about how to do this, one of the things we felt really clearly about was not giving specific times. Some people freak out. They're like, this sounds legalistic. It's like, you keep doing your life and experiencing the chaos of it. But putting times around it could be a little funky because we all have very different lives. And my times of when my phone goes to bed and wakes up, probably going to be different than your times. So I'm not mandating or demanding that, hey, at 8 p.m. your phone goes off. Here's what I'm asking. Can you choose a time that you think is reasonable and good for yourself? And that's the time. Now, for me, I have 2 phones. And the only reason I'm telling you that is because it's kind of complicated what time my phone goes to sleep and wakes up. I ended up getting a second phone a year ago. And there were various reasons for it. One of the reasons was in 2022 or 2023, a statistic from Barna came out that said that 42% of U.S. pastors had seriously considered leaving the church and not being pastors anymore. 42%. It's almost half. Almost every other pastor was like seriously considering leaving pastoring, being done. Almost half. By God's grace, I haven't felt that. I think one of the reasons I haven't felt that is because I've had a lot of control around my technology. As we talk about kids being the first ones raised in this digital atmosphere, we're amongst one of the first generation of pastors being raised with 24/7 access. Hey, Brad, can we chat? It's 9 o'clock on Friday. It's like, oh, sure. Emergency. No wonder so many pastors are burning out and want nothing to do with this. It will kill you. It's not sustainable. So I decided, as a way to love Jesus, love my family, I said, I can no longer be accessible 24/7. And so I have a phone, 2 phones. One phone is basically just for family and a couple close friends. It's like an emergency phone. It's like my Batman phone or whatever. This is my general phone. Everyone else has this number. This phone turns off at 5 p.m. during the week. Because I eat family dinner at 5, and I don't. Off at 5 p.m., and I turn it back on at 10 a.m. during my work days. It's on for 7 hours a day during my work day. Because I care deeply about being present with God and people. And I cannot be present when my phone is going off constantly. I mean, I have over 2,000 contacts on my phone. I'm sure all of us are busy. We all get lots of text messages. The amount of group text messages I'm on is startling. I cannot remain sane and a lover of Jesus and lover of people with my phone constantly on, constantly wondering who's trying to reach me. Now, I have my other phone. It's for emergencies. People can get a hold of me. If things are really emergency, come to my house, knock on the door. I'm there. But I've gone, for the sake of my soul, I need this. Now, I don't think everyone needs 2 phones. I don't. It was like $35 or $40 a month. I think it's the best $35. It's like either get a Chipotle burrito or a phone. It's like sure, I'll get a second phone. And it's like the cost. It's worth like $300 a month for my soul. Most people don't need that. A lot of people do have work phones, which is so funny. Pastors aren't allowed to. I'm like, well, I'm going to. And it's not because I don't love people. It's because I want to love Restore LA till I die. And I don't think I'm going to be able to do that if I'm constantly accessible. So it's not because people bother me. I love people. It's I want to love people well. It's when I'm in a meeting with you, you're not worried about my phone buzzing. I'm like, hold on, I got something more important. It's a way. So practice number 1. Phones go to bed before we do. They wake up after we do. Why? So we can begin and end our day with God. Okay? I want the last thing pretty much every single night that happens is my wife and I, we pray in bed together. Okay? That's the last thing. So we end with God. And the first thing I do, the moment I wake up, my alarm clock goes off, I turn it off, I roll out of bed, and I kneel and pray. Say a quick kneeling prayer, and then I begin my day, and obviously spend more time with Jesus than that, but that's, my day ends with God, it begins with God. When most people begin their day with phones and screens and chaos. So, the thing I'm asking you is to seriously consider, what would a reasonable time for my phone to go off? Now, the reason I told you I have 2 phones, this phone goes off at 8:30 p.m., more reasonable than 5, and then turns back on around 8 a.m. in the mornings, okay? Now, that's 90% of the time. Some of you you're like, Brad, I've gotten a text from you for like 7 p.m. Yeah, it happens. But more times than not, it doesn't happen, okay? And so some people freak out. They're like, well, if it's a rule and I break it once, then I should just throw it out. No. Keep the rule. Just more times than not, follow it. And so there are times where I'm like, oh, shoot, I have to text that person. I have to turn my phone back on. I have to respond to this. Yeah, it happens. But that's not my everyday life. And so for you, figuring out, okay, what time does my phone go off and what time does my phone go on? Now, it may be 10 o'clock for you. It may be 11 o'clock. I don't know. I'd love to see that earlier in the evening where it's off, and you're just like, hey, I'm done. I'm not responding. And if you're like, well, what about emergencies? It's like, okay, how many emergencies have you had in the last 3 years? It's like, maybe one, maybe zero. Like, if you need a house phone, sure, get a house phone. But I think we like believe these lies. I need to be reachable. Like, if someone's having an emergency, don't call Brad Sarian, call 911, man. It's like, you don't want to call me in an emergency. It's like, call somebody else. But most of us were like, something might happen. It might happen, but people for all of human history have been okay being unreachable for a few hours. Do you know this phone goes off on Sabbath? I'm breaking all my rules today. This phone goes off for 24 hours on Sabbath, Friday 5 p.m. to Saturday 5 p.m. Do you know what happens to my soul when this phone goes off for 24 hours? It's unbelievable. My kids, like, they celebrate. It's like, it's over, yay, the phone's off. And it's gone for 24 hours. Like, I'm like, breathe. There is such joy. And so what would it look like for you to have a fixed time? And everyone's work schedule is different. Maybe some of you wake up at 4 a.m. and you got to be at work by 4:30 a.m. I get it. So I need to be reachable by my supervisor, whoever it is. Okay, fine. Figure it out. But would it be, even if it's just 15 minutes after you go to bed, or 15 minutes before you wake up, that you wake up, you spend some time with Jesus, you at least acknowledge his presence and go, Jesus, you're going to be the one who dictates my day, not the news, not my email, not my text messages, you. And so you actually have to pick a time, okay? Now, you're going to have to probably work through this. The time you pick today or this week is probably going to change, and that's totally fine. You might go, you know what, Brad, I'm with you, 5 p.m., and you try that for a week, you're like, that's crazy, not working. So, okay, 6 p.m., okay, 7 p.m., 8, like, figure it out, but would we please not be men and women who fall asleep, last things, Netflix on the screen, thing on this, whatever it is. We have space to breathe, to practice God's presence. One of our rules in our home is that there's no phones in bed. This is, man, I am convinced that so many marriages, that this is a major obstacle to just deep relationship and intimacy. Like if this phone is allowed to be in bed, you're just going to end up, both of you just scrolling, checking things out. It's like when we get in bed, the night, it's not allowed. Like I literally have it plugged off to the side. So if I'm in bed and I have to like say a reminder or something, it's the worst thing in the world. I have to get out of bed for it. So it's like, is this worth it? This better be worth it. But it is. It always is. So the first practice is phones go to bed before we do. They wake up after we do. Here's practice number 2. Phones stay off our bodies at home and live in a central place. Okay, now I think this is probably going to be a lot harder. This thing has become so much one of us that we can't fathom it not in our pocket, in our hand, on us 24/7. I mean, we've all been guilty, like, oh, I got to go to the bathroom. Wait, my phone. It's like, how I can't, the 30 seconds or however long you're in there, like I can't fathom being there without a phone. I taught one of my rules is no phones in the bathroom. I remember I taught this at a tech seminar a few years back. A guy raised his hand. He's like, then if I can't text while I'm on the toilet, when am I ever going to send a text message? I was like, that's disgusting. And now everyone here knows that you only text and poop. So, and since that day, every text I get from him, I'm like, oh man. So, what would it look like for us to be a community that when you're home, now some of you work from home, you're like, Brad, I need my phone on. Cool. Yeah, this is primarily after work hours, right? So let's just pretend you work 8 to 5 from home. Yeah, you need your phone on you, all that stuff. But if you're off at 5, phone goes in a designated space at your house. Now, please hear me. This could be a very local space that it's near you, and it's even on loud in case that emergency that happens every day has to happen. You're going to hear it ring. It basically becomes like an old corded phone. You can plug it into the wall, put it in the kitchen, on the fireplace, in your bedroom, wherever it is, but it just sits in a local location, and it's not on you. You know, one of my favorite things one of my kids said to me one time, they asked me a question that I didn't know, and I think it was my daughter. And she was like, well, can you just Google it? I was like, I don't have my phone on me. She was like, oh, you never have your phone on you. And I was like, yes. Like, that's what I want my kids to remember. Like, I always had questions for Google. My dad was awful. He never had his phone on him. It's like, tell that to your therapist. You'll be okay. It sits somewhere. Now again, this is so hard. Sometimes I'm sitting on the couch reading or I'm talking with somebody and I have to text that person. Okay, cool. I have to get up, go to the thing, send the text, and I go back to where I was. And it might go ding. Now I always have my notifications on, so I don't hear dings. But if you need to, because your job or your family or whatever, sure, let it ding. But it's not on you. You're not sitting on the couch with your kids watching an awful kids TV show and you're like watching on your phone on the other side. And your kid's like, hey, look. We've all been there. Because your kid wants to connect with you even if you're watching TV. Your kid wants to know, are you here? So we're here. Our phones are not going to get in the way. They're in a central located place. They're not on our bodies. This is hard. I literally, my emergency phone, because the other one's basically off most times I'm at home, I have it to where I show up in the vicinity of my house. iPhones, I'm sure everyone, Androids do it too. But it changes the background, and the background says, please return to the bedroom. So as soon as I'm at home, the background's like, hey, put this away. I said, all right, put it in the central location. I try my best. Now, Brad, do you do this 100% of the time? No, I don't. But even if I'm 82%, it's pretty phenomenal. And so you don't need to beat yourself up. You'll be like, man, I tried and it was hard. Yeah, well, it's going to be hard. And Brad, I only did 40%. How amazing. 40%, that's incredible. I bet your kids have noticed. Like what would it look like for all of us? Again, this is for everybody, so you don't have to have kids. You can be single. And again, I know this is hard, and I don't understand what it might be like to be living alone and like, man, Brad, this is the only way I connect with people. Okay, I understand that. But again, I'm not saying you're not allowed to text. I'm not saying you're not allowed to call. I'm just saying it's not on you 24/7. And so you want to schedule those calls in the evening, you want to text? Sure. And this is scandalous. Sometimes, if I'm texting somebody, I just stand there and I just keep texting. It's okay, but I'm keeping it in a central location. So what would it look like for you to choose a place in your home? Now, it's funny, one of the central places for me is just the bedroom. I put it on the nightstand during the day. Nighttime, it goes off. But where is it for you? What would it look like? Figuring those things out. But one of the best things you could do is just charge it. So it is really and you kind of tell yourself, I can't unplug this phone. It is like a corded phone where you just you can't leave it from this room, right? And so, why do we do that? Well, here's why. So that we can be present with God and others. Really hard to be present when the phone's constantly going off. This is more engaging than people. Most of the time. The addictive nature of it is so difficult. And so I don't want to compete with it. It's going to win if I'm going to compete with it. It wins every time. So I'm going to win by thinking ahead of it and going, you don't have access to me. Because I want to be present with God and I want to be present with people. At home, primarily with my family. This means at meals, there's no screens at meals because they're not here. We've told the story, I've told it a couple times, but when Nadia moved into our house 6, 7 years ago, who knows how long ago that was now. It was 7 years ago. She moved into our home, and she was early 20s, and she was just going to live for a couple weeks, and she ended up living for a few years. And in the first week at dinner table, she would sit there, and she'd be on her phone. And one day my daughter said, Nadia, there's no phones allowed at the dinner table. And that was the end. And Nadia didn't do that anymore. But it was just such a part of our culture. It's like, no, we're kids, you don't have to compete with email. You don't have to compete with all the things. Those things ringing. You don't have to compete with it, right? So we do this. Now, you will find that making small changes can bring significant impact. I remember down in San Diego, Sarah and I, we were living in San Diego, part of Restored Church, and we were connecting with this one family. There was this one family that was really friendly, lived down the street, neighbors of ours. They had kids about the same age as our kids, and so it was just really natural. They weren't Christian, and we were sharing the gospel with them. They started coming to church. It was really, really cool. But one night, they invited us over for dinner at their house. So we went to dinner at their place. And we walked into their home, and San Diego, most homes are very small. So all the homes are pretty small. And so we walk into their home, and we're about to have dinner, and I quickly realized there's no kitchen table, no dinner table. And so we just grabbed the food from the kitchen, and we all sat around the TV and watched what was on. And I was like, I'm not like, this is weird. I just thought, this is what we're doing. Cool, that's fine. A couple weeks later, we had them over for dinner at our house. TV was off the whole night, and we had a dining room table. Again, not big, but enough to kind of cram around. And we had dinner, and we talked, eye to eye, face to face, and we had lovely dinner and talked. And a couple weeks later, they invited us back to their house. And we walked into the house, and there was a dining room table, and we sat and we ate dinner around the table. I never said a single word, but they experienced what life could be like, not sitting and watching TV over dinner, but actually talking to each other, that so much that they bought just a cheap little table, and we had a lovely dinner talking to one another. It's like the change can happen. Like your kids can grow up in a home where screens are so irregular at meals that when their friends are doing it, they're like, what are you doing? Let's talk. This is way better than TikTok. Let's engage with each other. We want to be present with God. So many people are like, man, I have a hard time listening to God. It's like, of course you do. You have 200 notifications a day going off. God is not allowed to talk to you. You've got so many other things going on. Your spouse is not allowed to talk to you. You're engaged in all these other things. And so phones stay off our bodies at home and live in a central place. So would you think through where that could be? Now, a few rules for families. Practice number 1, we give our kids more of the real world, not just less of the digital one. Okay? Now, this is a little bit more subjective. It's not like, put the phone here at this time, but I think this is a really important rule for families because I don't want this whole day to come across as, throw your phones away in the trash. We're going to be different. It's like you probably need your phone. And they're not all evil. But the solution of today is not just less of your phone. It's more of the real world. It's going back to more of that childhood play, allowing your kids. And again, age appropriately, figure it out. Like I remember the first time just letting the kids play in the front yard, and Sarah and I are inside. And for the first 5 minutes, you're like, no one's kidnapping them. Okay, they're fine. And then it just becomes a normal thing. And then they just start riding their bikes around the school and in the neighborhood. And you're like, the first time, you're like, terrified. And then it happens, and they're okay. They came home, and you're like, whoa, this is great. We want to see them flourishing. You want to see your kids get scraped knees. You want to see that. That's a good thing. Yeah, they're going to cry, and they're going to need ice cream or whatever it is, but it's a good thing. We want to give them more of the real world. As our kids have gotten older, now 6th and 8th grade, I'm working myself out of a job. They're doing all the chores now. And that's not just so that dad and mom's life is easier. It's to give them responsibility. So I told my wife the other day, my daughter was doing dishes, and Sarah and I were in bed reading. And I was like, I don't know if there's a sweeter noise I've ever heard. It's just like my daughter doing dishes. That is like music to my ears. My son, he picks up the dog poop. He does the trash. He doesn't just take out our trash cans. He takes out a bunch of our neighbors' trash cans to bless our neighbors. He then started a business called Trash Dash. People pay for him to take his trash cans down. It's like, yeah, dude, get it. We are not looking at our kids anymore being like, okay, be careful. It's like we want to see them flourish. We want to give them more of the real world. One of the reasons I've taken both my kids to South Africa earlier on when they turned 10 years old. I just want them to see more of the real world. I want them to grasp that what they are a part of is very not normal. Taking them to my friend Eugene's house in a township in South Africa, where it's a tin roof and dirt on the ground. That will change a kid. I want them to see the world. I want them to see chores are good, responsibility is good, scraping your knee is good, playing outside is good, swimming is good. These things are good, and they're better than being on screens all day long. But it's probably going to be harder for us as parents, especially the younger they are. It's like, all right, we got to go to the park again. Dude, we lived at the park when our kids were young. I mean, literally, like it's just every day. In San Diego, we lived across the street from a park. We were at the park more than we were at home. Home's more comfortable, it's easier, put the TV on, but we're like, no. Sarah would take the kids to the park. We have a picture of Emma. She was 1 day old at the park. Now, Sarah's holding her, obviously, but Micah was 1.5 years, and he's like, I need my slide time. I don't care if she's a day old. It's like, we need to be at the park. And so it's like, we need to get them out. We need to show them that being outside is better. So we want to give our kids more of the real world, not just less of the digital one. Why? Because we have the privilege of forming kids who love God and people, who work hard and play with wonder. This is why we want to give them more of the real world, not let them believe that conquering the next level of Halo or Call of Duty or Fortnite is like a real successful achievement. Sure, if you want to have a little fun on a video game, put the time limits, whatever. But like, hey buddy, there's something way better than that. And it's called real life. And so we want to cast vision for that and let them experience that. One of the gifts we need to give our kids is the gift of boredom. Like when my kids say at home, I'm bored, I go, good. Praise God you're bored. Andy Crouch in his book, The Tech Wise Family, says, the technology that promises to release us from boredom is actually making it worse, making us more prone to seek empty distractions than we have ever been. In fact, I've come to the conclusion that the more you entertain children, the more bored they will get. And I have seen that so clearly in my household. More. The moment that TV goes off, I'm bored. It's like, you just watch TV for 7 hours. What do you mean you're bored? It's like, it will create a constant boredom the moment these things are off. And yet, when they get outside and start rolling, they're not bored. They're creative, they're having fun. So we want to do our best to go get outside, go play. Mommy, Daddy, we're here with you. Whatever it is, like we're trying to help you do these things. But boredom is a good thing. Kids should be bored. Like I remember being a kid. You're like, summer break's coming, yeah. Day 2, you're like, this is boring. Like, yeah, it is. Get used to it. But like figure out what to do. Get creative. Play with the Legos. Start drawing, color, paint, whatever it is. We got a piano in the house. Play more. Like do things that are not just consuming, but creating, right? Here's our second practice. Children use screens in shared spaces with safeguards and time limits. So children use screens in shared spaces with safeguards and time limits. Kids never have screens in bedrooms. Only in open spaces. A living room where the TV is, laptop, computer, only stay out. One of the things that I hated, but it happened, our 6th grader, when he started school, all the kids needed their own laptops. So he has his own laptop now, but he knows if he's on his laptop, he has to be facing out in the living room. It's not even enough to be in the living room on the couch with his back to the wall. All screens are publicly visible to all of us. We all know the temptation of what you do on a screen when no one's watching versus when everyone can see. This isn't like, those kids, they're crazy. It's adults too. And so we go, hey, children use shared screens in shared spaces with safeguards and time limits. Safeguards, and I don't have a ton of time to talk about this, but there are a lot of different filters that you can put on. We actually, just in the process of prepping all this and working through, we just bought a new router. I didn't even know what a router was, but we just bought a router that basically now every single device is connected to, and I have time limits on everything and specific websites and all the stuff. Like, you can do that, and I can explain more of that in Q&A. But there needs to be filters. There should not be full access to everything, okay? And time limits. Again, I'm not telling you here's the time limits for all Restored LA families, 1 hour a day. It's like, I don't know what your family's going to look like, but endless screen time is not good, okay? Endless screen time is really not okay. And so why do we need children using screens and shared spaces with safeguards and time limits? So our kids are protected from content that would distort their view of God's good world, distort their view of God, themselves, people, and so that they can grow in self-control that will help them flourish for life. When my daughter's doing dishes, that's a sweet sound to my ears. Another sound to my ears is when I tell my kids, hey, we're done with screens now. And they just turn them off and it's done. It's like, oh, thank you, Jesus. Now, it wasn't always like that. And it's not always like that. But more times than not, it's like, okay, we're done. We're teaching our kids self-control. That's one of the greatest gifts you can give your kid is self-control. And self-control, I was reading one of these books. One of the dads, kind of an evil dude, he basically just messes with his kids. He's a good dude, but he jokes around. He's like, I'll see my kids playing video games. I'll just like, all right, we're done today. And the kid will turn off. He's like, just kid, now you get an extra hour because you just turned it off without complaining. He's like, he's teaching his kid. He's just like, I love you. I want to train you to be able to have self-control that where you can't, one more. We're actually drawing lines going, no, we're done. And for younger kids, specific timelines around that are very, very important, right? So this is just recommended screen time limits. This primarily is from UK government, just did a study and some research that came out this year on what they recommend. Again, this is what's difficult about being Christians. The Bible doesn't mention anything. I think this is where Christians can get really apathetic and lazy. They're like, well, the Bible doesn't say anything, so therefore, endless screen time. It's like, no, there is common wisdom that God has given people and that we want to follow as best we can. And so here's what the UK government and some of the other, like American Academy of Pediatrics, World Health Organization, I kind of combined some, so if you want to find the actual, I can send you where each one is. But this is primarily the UK government for under 5. It says under 2, basically just avoid screens. Like under 2, kids should basically have zero access to screens for their development. You're like, but what are we going to do? Like what everyone did forever before. And here's the thing. This is way harder if you introduce screens and then have to take it away. And this is why some of you like pregnant right now or baby's like 6 months old, you're like, God bless you. Some of us 10-year-old, you're like, this is going to be a lot harder to figure out. But under 2 years old, basically no screen time. 2 to 5 years old, try to keep it to 1 hour a day, less if possible. The UK government's like, please, just don't. Anything under 5, just try not to. But if you have to, 1 hour a day. Now again, these are not Bible. Figure out what works for your family. But again, endless screen time is not a good idea. 6 and older, consistent limits on time and content, ensuring it doesn't displace sleep, physical activity, or other essential activities. So everyone seems to agree less is more. With our rule being children use screens in shared spaces with safeguards and time limits, it is really important for us to go, okay, what's the time limit look like for our family in this season of life? And each kid's going to be different. You got kids that are 3 years old and 8 years old in your family, it's going to look different. They should know, they should have clarity. I mean, we've gone through so many different seasons. I could get practical in some, like we've had token systems before where they get specific tokens for the week, and each token represents 30 minutes, and then they get to use that when they want to. We've had sticker charts and all, I mean, you get creative. Figure out what works for your family, but when kids are really young, it really helps them to know, oh, I've got 6 tokens left for the week, and each token represents 1 TV show. One of my favorite things is you start showing kids that when they're young. What you want to see is them have a lot of tokens on the last day. Delayed gratification. It's one of the greatest things we can create in our kids and develop in them. One of my favorite things, weeks would finish, and my kids at like the last day, they're like, I have too many tokens. I can't watch enough of the day. It's like, yes, good. Like that's what should be happening, right? So, third practice. No smartphones or social media until age 16. Now, this is the social media, smartphones, or social media is I think smartphones as well. Jonathan Haidt, Anxious Generation. Again, where is this in the Bible? It's not in the Bible. Researchers are generally saying this is a good idea, okay? Now, Here's what I would love to see at Restore LA. I actually, our family is probably going to wait till 18 for smartphones and social media, but that we'll see. Talk to me again in a few years. 16 is like bare minimum in my mind for social media and smartphones. Now, why? A lot of research shows that ages 9 to 15 are when the brain is most open to being shaped, and whatever fills those years is what shapes it. So what most of these books on technology are saying, giving a child a smartphone and social media during puberty is like one of the worst things you could possibly do. Your brain is so moldable during those years of puberty, and to have that little girl on that bus next to me just looking at hours and hours and hours of what a beautiful woman should look like is not just her wasting time, it's distorting her brain. Okay? So, why 16? One 2022 study followed 17,000 young people in the UK, ages 10 to 21. It found distinct windows when higher social media use predicted lower life satisfaction a year later. So ages 11 to 13 for girls, 14 to 15 for boys, and then again around 19 for both. So part of me is like, just no social media, smartphones till 20, but that's probably going to be hard. So, but generally speaking, what research has found is that for girls, the worst years for using social media is 11 to 13. And for boys, it's 14 to 15. Now, I still think 16 is too young to give a kid full access to the internet. There should always be filters, but what would it look like for Restore to LA to go, hey, I know my kid might be one of the only ones at her school, that doesn't have social media and a smartphone, but there's 150 kids here, and a lot of them are younger, and we're growing, but eventually we'll have some critical mass here where a lot of these kids are 14, 15, and they won't have smartphones and social media, and you're not going to be the only crazy parents. And Sarah and I, for a long time, have been the only crazy parent. It's really hard. And part of me is like, I don't want to do this thing. My kids are old enough. Good luck. And it's like, no, I really do want to see our church, even though my kids have not been able to benefit from this, I want to see the future of our church's generations to come flourishing deeply, even though my kids are kind of through a lot of this. Now, Brad, doesn't your 13-year-old son have an iPhone? I'm glad you asked. Yes. So, why does Micah have an iPhone? He has an iPhone for a couple of reasons. One is, for me, it's easier to lock down than anything else. So if you actually look at his iPhone, he has zero access to the internet, zero access to the App Store. He has no games on his phone. When he started 6th grade, he got an iPhone. It was a hand-me-down. We were like upgrading, and it was, You should always be really nervous when companies are handing you free phones. We're like, yay, free upgrade. It's a $1,200 device. It's free. The companies are like, yeah, it's free, all right. It'll cost you. Anyways, so we gave him a phone going into 6th grade. 6th grade, and this is our rule. Again, you don't have to do exactly this. 6th grade, what we decided was he would have a phone simply for communication. He didn't even know his own phone number, and he was only allowed to text mom and dad. So you're like, it's an iPhone. It's like, it's a pretty dumb phone at that point. It could just call, text mom and dad. No internet, no social media, no apps, nothing but that. He wasn't even allowed to text friends. He wasn't allowed to give his number out to anybody. It's just, hey, basketball practice went long. Give us a heads up. I don't even think it's necessary. We probably didn't need to, but we did. Our plan was that he would not be allowed to text friends until 9th grade. As 7th grade came around, we started realizing that friendship is very different today than it used to be. When kids are really young, the way you coordinate play dates is mommy texts mommy, and you figure out a play date, or dad, whatever, right? What we were discovering is that by 6th grade, hangouts, going to the movie, all that stuff happens from kids texting one another. And my son was one of the only ones not getting invited to anything because he doesn't have a phone. No one texts him. And so on Monday, he'd show up and everyone went out and they saw this movie or they went to this and all that stuff. And it was really hard as a parent trying to figure out, like, man, that's a really big bummer. So we didn't immediately go, okay, fine, here. We were like, all right, let's pray about this. Let's think about this. This would be a change. So we decided, okay, we will let him begin texting friends when he turns 13 years old. And before he does that, he has to read Digital Minimalism by Cal Newport. He has to read Tech-Wise Family by Andy Crouch. And he has to write essays on each book about what stood out to him, what challenged him, what are errors and some things that are going to be problematic as he begins texting and all this stuff. And then we had a contract, and we had to read the contract, specific rules around his phone use, and sign the contract, okay? So before they ever get into social media, they will have to read Anxious Generation, and 75 other books. I will make it as hard as possible. But parents are like, you made your kid read books and write essays before they could text their friends. Like, yeah, and I wish I would have made it more books. Like I just, that's what we did. And so he now has texting capabilities with friends. We have filters on his phone, AI filters that basically take screen grabs regularly. If there's anything inappropriate, we will get notified. And he knows that if he ever gets sent something, if we find out before he tells us, the phone's gone for a year. So it's not your fault if somebody sends you a pornographic image. You better come to us quicker than I get an email, though. Because if I get the email before you talk to me about it, phone's gone. So you're not in trouble for getting the image, but you are in trouble if you don't tell us. So we have a lot of rules around that stuff. You are, when I talk to parents who don't understand that porn is readily available on everything, it blows my mind. When he was in 5th grade, he didn't have a phone yet, and a bunch of his buddies, it came out in the school that they were all texting each other Pornhub links, and they were all watching porn. And I remember talking to one of the parents, and the parent came to me, and they're like, was Micah part of that? I was like, no, he doesn't have a phone. They're like, oh, man. I was like, yeah, if he had a phone, he would have been on, if phone and texting, he would have been on there and would have seen all this stuff. And the parent says to me, they go, 5th grade. I cannot believe that 5th graders are looking at porn. And I said, I can't believe that you're in disbelief that 5th graders are looking at pornography. This is not crazy. The craziest thing to me is that you think it's crazy that 5th graders are looking at porn when they've been given access to the internet. It starts out with curiosity, but very quickly it becomes an addiction. Do not be confused or surprised that a child who receives full internet access will quickly be looking at pornography. It's everywhere. And so we need to be really wise. So, I share what we're doing, not because it's perfect. Again, we've made changes. We didn't think we'd text until 9th grade, and he's texting now in 7th grade. So we want to be flexible. I didn't understand the dynamics of kids inviting kids and parents not. So I want to be flexible. But again, this smartphones, he doesn't have a smartphone, right? Like it doesn't have internet access, and there's no social media. And so I would love to see Restore LA be a community where there's no smartphones, there's no social media for kids under 16. I'd love it to be higher. But a couple of quick things, then we'll do Q&A. We'll take a 5-minute break and then Q&A. What if they already have a phone or social media? What should we do? Now, I've talked to parents where I've done a lot of this stuff, and they're like, well, we already messed up. What do we do now? Again, I think it goes back to Gene Twangy's rule number 1. You're in charge. Yep, it's a bummer. It's not even necessarily your fault. If you have not read through this stuff, you haven't thought deeply about this stuff, not necessarily your fault. I think you need to talk to your kids. I think probably the worst thing you could do is come home today and be like, give me your phone, it's done. Talk to Brad, he's the bad guy, phone's done. We're never doing it. You just can't do that. I don't think you can do that. I think what you need to do is probably spend some time in prayer and really think through how to lovingly serve your child. It's going to come through conversations, and I think it'll probably come through some apologizing to your child. And humbly going, you know what, I did something that probably wasn't best for you, and I'm really sorry, and this is going to be hard for you, but ultimately it'll be good for you, okay? Now, you can figure out filters and social media and all that stuff. You can lock phones down pretty well. Kids are creative, but you can do that. But I think depending on their age, if someone's like, well, my 9-year-old, I gave him a smartphone, the cat's, it's out of the bag, here we are. It's like, I would conversation and then pull that smartphone from a 9-year-old very quickly. A 15-year-old, okay, that conversation is probably going to look a little different, but I think we have to be able to talk to our kids, and we have to own, you know what, I did not realize the damage. One of the reasons I had my son read one of the books is a secular book, Digital Minimalism. I don't want him thinking this is just like a weird Christian thing. Cal Newport was going like, this is bad. And I'm like, I want my son and my daughter to hear even secular voices going, this is not good. And so you can share those things with them, have them watch a video, whatever it is. They're still not going to love the idea of removing that. It's going to be really, really hard. But again, your responsibility is not for their temporary happiness. It's for their long-term flourishing. And so you're going to have to, your 15-year-old might freak out like my 2-year-old, ponies, Instagram. Yeah, and it's going to be really hard for a couple weeks, and then they'll probably be way better off. And so we want to have the long haul. We would create new boundaries, exploring controls and safeguards. We could have more conversation about that. What if we fail, Brad? These are five practices. That's a lot. What if we fail? You're going to fail. It's okay. People freak out about that. I love rules, but I don't love rules because I always achieve them. I love rules because they help correct me when I go off. And so you're going to fail. Your kids are going to watch too much TV one day. You're going to be on the phone. You're going to go to bed while Netflix is on, whatever it is. Like, it's going to happen. It's okay. There's grace for you. Jesus isn't like, you were at that tech seminar. Shame on you. There's grace. He loves you. He's for us. He wants to see us flourish. So we're going to fail. It's okay that we fail. More importantly is how do we get back onto the right track? And so, yep, we messed up. Okay, we got really sloppy. Summertime is very easy to get sloppy with tech rules. It's like, all right, but kids are starting school in 2 weeks. All right, you know what? In 2 weeks, we're going to get the chart back out. And that's okay. You're not a failure. You get to tell your kids, hey guys, we got a little sloppy. We want to get back to this. And they probably aren't going to be thrilled, but it's what's best for them. So plan on that taking place. What this looks like together as Restored LA. A rule of life is most powerful when it's shared, not just by a family, but by a community. And this is my deep desire for us as a church. But for us not to go, okay, Brad, my little family is going to do this, but to go, you know what would this look like if the majority of our families did this? I really believe it could change the valley. It really can, because families are going to notice. It's going to start small, but it will change the valley. It'll eventually become normal. I want it to become our culture. Again, not judgmentalism, but I want it to be our culture, similar to with that family that we sat around the table, we sat around the TV, and then we had them in our home, and we sat around the table, and then we didn't even have to say anything. We have families coming every week that aren't Christian, that are trying to figure out the Jesus thing. I want those families to come in, and their 9-year-old to be on YouTube the whole gathering. I want that to happen. But within the next few weeks, they're like, oh, wow, nobody else is doing that. Maybe we should not do that. And it becomes a culture, not of judgmentalism, look at how bad this family is, but they'll see that there's a better way to do life. And this is one of my deep desires, that it would just become normal, that our kids would not have smartphones, not have social media, that tech would be gone. So here's the August practice. Today's August 1st. I love the beginning of new months. Just feels fresh. Who cares what happened in July? Today's August 1. New budget, new life, new all things. What would it look like for us to take August as really a practice of this and to see what takes place? It might take you a couple days to work this stuff out. I'm not like, some of you are like, I'm already 11 hours behind. Like, no, it's okay. But what would it look like for you to go, okay, if you're married, your spouse tonight, if you have an hour just to sit down, 30 minutes, and go, hey, what do we think? Let's just throw random numbers out. Let's try to have phones off by 9 p.m. and on at 6 a.m. Let's try that for a week. Okay, you hold me accountable, I'll hold you accountable. Great. Kids, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take those TVs out of the rooms in the next couple days. We're going to talk to our kids. We're going to put device locks on devices, whatever it is. And let's see what happens in this next month. I mean, like, you see advertisements where like, money back guaranteed. I know this was free, but like, money back guaranteed. I cannot fathom a world where you get to the end of August doing this stuff and you're like, we're more depressed, we're more anxious, we hate our lives, our relationships are just floundering. Brad, you really ruined us. I'll give you $100. If that's what happens at the end of August, I'll personally give you $100. I don't think it's going to happen. I think all of us know that. I think more we're just like, it's going to be hard. It is going to be hard, but it's going to be good. So phones going to bed before we do. Wake up after us. Phones stay off our bodies at home. Screens and shared spaces, all the things. And we're going to talk about this together. And here's the vision we want to fight for before we take a break. 5 minutes. We are not just fighting against screens. We're fighting for something more beautiful. When I was looking at those pictures of my kids just joyfully smiling at the park, at the beach, South Africa, front yard with tree trimmings, I'm like, Jesus, I want to see more of that. I want to see them flourishing. I want to see scraped knees. I want to see them living joyful and free. And I want to see parents who are present and loving. I want our community to be a community where, yes, every once in a while, you're going to have to tell the kid, hey, I can't be present right now. I need to be work, phone, need to talk to somebody. Yeah, that's going to happen. But more times than not, your kid knows that you're present, you're available. And ultimately to see a church that's alive and attractive to a world that is floundering in the midst of it all. So let's take a 5-minute break. All right. Some Q&A, which is always fun. I might call on my wife a few times because this is a joint venture. And when the kids were younger, she was at home with them way more time than I was. So she had to lock a lot of this stuff down, and we worked through this. And again, where we're at today, if I had children today, we would do things differently. So let's just dive in. How to keep no screen time under 2 when older sibling has time. Again, I want to be really clear that I'm not, these are guidelines by the UK government. I'm not saying if you let your 2-year-old watch 30 minutes of Barney, I'm going to pray for your salvation. Like, I'm not saying that, right? So I know plenty of the families in our church are like pretty rigorous around screen time, and they're like, yeah, our kid watches 30 minutes of Barney or whatever it is. I don't know if kids are watching Barney these days, but whatever it is, Miss Rachel's the hit. So I don't think it's figure out what works for your family, right? Now, your older kids shouldn't be spending 5 hours on TV. So this shouldn't be like my older kids sit on TV for 6 hours. I'm trying to keep my 2-year-old from watching 6 hours of TV. Probably shouldn't be happening. If your older kid's watching an hour of TV, what would it look like for you to engage with your under 2-year-olds during that hour? Is they're watching something safe in the living room, whatever it looks like. So we did, that UK government study just came out recently. Our kids are old. So our kids did watch some TV under 2 years old. We would try not to. And here's what's so wild. Every kid is different. We didn't have to think deeply about technology much with our oldest, our son, because he actually wasn't too drawn to screens for whatever reason. I remember there were times I was like, I just need 30-minute break. Lord Jesus, please just sit here, watch that. And I would turn, like kind of sneak out of the room, and I'd turn around, and there he was right by my side. He's like, where are we going? I was like, what is it? Like, watch TV. Then our daughter, so I just assumed like, oh, that's just how things are. And then our daughter shows up, and I'd be like, all right, just sit here and watch this. And I'd be like, come back like 3 hours later. I'm like, you're still here? Oh my, like, whoa. She's like locked in. And so each kid's going to be different, so you're going to have to figure that out. So I don't have a great answer for this, I'll be honest. But again, older siblings shouldn't be on screens a ton. And if your younger ones do end up watching 30 minutes of a show, they're going to be okay. I think that one of the other errors of all this is like if your kid watches 30 minutes of TV at 1, their whole life is ruined. They'll be okay. Some of us grew up watching TV a lot. TV is not new. Smartphones, social media is new. TV is not. And so that's my semi-poor answer to that. Number 2, we often take screen time away as a consequence. Will this falsely present screens as being a positive reward? Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. My short answer is it's a great consequence. I honestly, I'm okay saying that it's not evil. Screens aren't evil. There is a joy and a pleasure of being on a screen. Watching a TV show is a reward. That can be a benefit. I don't think 30 minutes or an hour on TV is a bad thing. And it's like, okay, if you eat your dinner, we're going to let you take some drugs. Like, I don't think that's what we're asking, what we're doing. We're going, hey, TV's not bad. It's not evil. Too much of it's bad. Too much of the smartphone's bad. Too much of this stuff is bad. So honestly, the moment my son got a smartphone is like, man, forget all other consequences. This is the strongest consequence you will ever have as a parent. As long as you're strong and can love your kids well. I mean, literally, consequences like you mess up again, that thing's gone for 6 weeks. It's like, that kid's like, whew, all right. So I don't see an issue with it. Maybe you do. But I can say, yeah, there's positives to this thing. There's positives to that. I have no issue with that at all. How about social media issue when your child doesn't have but has access through friends who do have? Same with going over to a friend's house who allow tech. Yeah, this is definitely challenging when your family's rules are different than other families' rules. And I'll be brutally honest, my wife is a stud at this stuff. I can struggle more with fear of man of like, oh, you guys are crazy and do wild stuff with screens. Try not to. My wife, she like, when the kids are young, she still does. She'll call the parents like, hey, what are you guys' tech rules? Here are our tech rules. We don't allow screens in bedrooms. Bedroom doors are always open. That's the only way that our daughter's going to come over. And the parents are like, okay, sure. And so they do that. If the parents are like, no, we do whatever we want, then okay, then our kids are just not going to hang out at their house. This happened recently. I was like, my wife is amazing. We were at dinner with a family at their house, and the boys were hanging out. Lovely family, Christian family, great family. Boys were hanging out. They come out, and the son, who's Micah's age, says something like, hey, the YouTube's not working or something. And my wife goes, you have YouTube in your room? Something like that. I always say, yeah, I exaggerate, but basically it was like, oh, there's screens in the room? And then the parents like, yeah, is that okay? And she's like, oh, actually, our family rule is no screens in the room. And they were like, yeah, turn that off, no more screens in the room. And it was done. I was like, oh my gosh, like in my heart, I was like, it's okay, watch whatever you want on YouTube, And she's like, no, I care deeply about my kids. And here's the thing, it didn't cause an issue. Like, again, if they hate us now, they don't want us to have over for dinner, that's fine. But it wasn't that. It was just like, oh, they just, Sarians are a little weird, that's fine. These are the rules, and Sarah's just like, this is what we do. So you can have rules for your kids at other places. This is hard, but it is good. And now please hear me. We have rules. I'm not naive enough to go, nothing bad is ever going to happen at somebody else's house or even in our house because we have these rules. This is why we've also prepared our kids from very young. We've read them books about seeing bad images and what do they do if they see a naked body? They come and talk to mommy and daddy. Like, you name your body parts so they know about their own bodies. Like, we're training them all along to where now, we just had a phenomenal conversation about pornography last night. And a lot of this was just because we're talking about this. But we're talking with 12 or 13-year-old about porn and hey, have you guys seen anything? And all, like, they're already exposed in other ways. We need to be talking to them. If you don't talk to your kids about porn or anything like that, they're gonna assume you don't know about it, or like they need to know that you understand what it is and that it's bad for them and it's not good. It's not God's desire. And so you should talk to your kids a lot about that at age-appropriate things. I can give resources on that kind of stuff. But yes, your kids should not be going over to other kids' houses with, and those parents just allow anything. I would go, oh, that's not happening. And that's going to be hard, might damage a friendship, but again, our kids are worth that. That kid can come over to our house anytime they want. This guy, Chris McKenna, I just read this, it just came out recently, 5 Habits of the Tech-Ready Family. He's got some great stuff on like protecting your kids. He has a ministry or organization called Protecting Young Eyes. And he is cutthroat. I mean, he is like, when other kids come into his home, he's like, give me your phones, and they put them all in the bucket. He's like, you're not allowed to have phones or anything in my house. It's all here. And so he's like, well, what if parents won't allow the kid to come if he doesn't have access to his phone? He's like, oh, that kid doesn't come over to my house. Like, that's it, So like, you can do hard things, and so just yeah. My kid says they'll be the only one without a phone and will lose all their friends. What do I say? Yes, this is hard, and it's probably an exaggeration that they'll lose all of their friends, but it's real to them. It's what they feel, and so we want to validate. Yep, I understand this is really hard. This is why I'm doing this at Restored LA. My desire is that your kid will not be the only kid as they grow up in this church. Where yeah, maybe at school, depending on the school, but to do your best to go, no, we're not alone. There are other families doing this. We're not crazy. But at the end of the day, even if you were all alone, I love you. I'm sorry. Our home is open. What are their parents' numbers? We can have hangouts at our house anytime you want. I understand that you're not able to engage with them, texting, whatever it is, but this home is always open. Let's get to know other kids in the neighborhood, whatever it is. And so it is hard. Many parents, this is where they just buckle. They just see their kid crying and they're like, fine, just they give in. And I'd go, man, not until it's age appropriate. And so, buddy, I love you. I'm really sorry this is hard. I can't imagine what this is like, but I know what is best for you in this. And it is this. And so I'm sorry. Here are our rules. You're in charge. It's hard, but it's required. And so, again, this is why we gave our kid texting abilities at 13. I mean, if your kid's like 9, like, I'm not going to have any friends. Like, I mean, a lot of 9-year-olds have phones, but, yeah, man, you don't want your 9-year-old texting. Lord help us. If your phone should be in a designated area at home, what about your smartwatch? Great question. I love technology. I have an iWatch, guys. I'm not anti-tech. I love my iWatch. My iWatch is always on Do Not Disturb. All of my devices are always on Do Not Disturb. Now, here's the craziest thing. If you call twice, it goes through. Now, if you call me twice and it's not an emergency, I'll block you. But, like, I am reachable. All of my friends, like, when that was a new thing, some people might be like, oh my gosh, his phone is off. It went straight to voicemail. I think we all know that if you call somebody twice, it rings through even through Do Not Disturb, or at least you can set up the settings like that. So all of my friends, all of my family know, hey, if you like really need to get a hold of me, call me twice. So I don't know, but maybe you struggle with your iWatch. You're like, I just love playing games on my iWatch. I don't ever think about my iWatch. It is helpful. This is why I can actually put my phone in the bedroom where it's far away. It's because if somehow somebody needed to call me twice and it came through, I would actually get that. But I don't get text messages on here. I don't get any notifications of any sort on my iWatch. So if you get all your notifications, yeah, turn that off as well. But that should be off and, yeah, not an issue. So, yeah, I don't think my kids have ever been like, Dad, you're on your iWatch too much. Like, I literally don't. Yeah. So, but if you need to put that away, put that away. Do you find that long sessions reading adult-level books on your own can be isolating? If not, how do you make it less isolating? You're probably asking the wrong guy. I love reading books, and I don't feel isolated by it, unless I'm reading it wrong. Do you find that long sessions reading adult-level books on your own can be isolating? If not, how do you make it less isolating? Yeah, I just love reading. I could read for 6 hours happily by myself in a room. Give me a cup of water, and I'll be fine. Yeah, if you book clubs are great. Read, with people if you're into it. Go to coffee shops, whatever it is. But yeah, unless I'm misunderstanding that, I personally don't find it an issue. But if it is for you, clearly, then yeah, if you're reading every day for 6 hours by yourself and you're like, it feels isolated. It's like, yeah, that sounds really like I don't have the privilege of just doing that 24/7. So when I do have chunks of time to just read for fun, it's like sacred space. So if you're in a different spot where maybe you're, I don't know, living alone or whatever, then yeah, get out with people. Man, I actually, and again, not Bible verse, and I know some of you have different situations and stuff, but like, I never encourage someone to live alone. And I know that may be the extrovert in me talking, but like, people are like, but Brad, having roommates, man, it's really hard. It's like, yeah, having a family is really hard. Like, people are hard, and it's way easier just to be alone. And so I encourage anybody, if possible, to live with people. And I know some of you are like, well, I just need a season living alone. That's fine. Again, not Bible, not sin, but I highly encourage Christians to live with people. Live with a family. Have roommates. Have, you're older, single. Have people living in your home, whatever it is. You should not be alone. You should be with people. God made us for that. So yes, have your quiet time, all the things. How do you encourage free-range play without giving into the fear of dangers of the outside world, especially if your spouse has more fears than you? She does have more fears than I do. Yeah, it's hard. It really is. There's no magical solution to this. It does require conversations. It does require risk, and I know that's like scary for us. And I think it's like little by little. Like, I'm not saying, hey, send your 4-year-old out into the park for 3 hours and then check on him later. It's like, that's not what we're saying. But like, what would it look like for your kid at an appropriate age, whatever it is, to play in the front yard without mommy and daddy and not check on them for 3 minutes? And then after 3 minutes, you're like, oh, they're still there. And then like maybe next time you go 10 minutes. And it's like, whoa, they're still there. And then it's like 20 minutes. Like it can be baby steps. And again, you don't have to play in the front yard, not necessarily, but like we're training our kids. Years ago was the first time I was like, why haven't I, my son, we were on a date and we were going to get Jamba Juice and then go somewhere. And I was like, here's $20, go get a Jamba Juice. He was like, what? He's like, what, how? I was like, figure it out, dude, you know your order. Like, it's like 10 years old, just go in, I'm right here in the car, just go in there, ask for a small orange freeze, whatever it was, and give him the $20 and then wait and come back out. And again, that step happens before I send them out to Vaughn's by himself. But the moment he comes out of Jamba Juice, holding a drink with a massive smile on his face, like, I did it! It's like, yeah, like we should be doing this like baby steps. We're letting them little things at a time. I think some of us, I just started a new book, I don't think I have it with me, called Capable by the Goffs. I haven't read the whole thing, I just started it. But this is one of the problems with a lot of us parents. We're like helicopter parents, and we're like, it's okay, buddy, let me spoon feed you, and the kid's like 8 years old. It's like, okay, we like let the kid feed himself, let the kid walk. But it's baby steps, and so we do, and Sarah and I have to correct each other on that. Sometimes she's a little bit more protective than I am. Most of the time, it's her. But yeah, baby steps, figure out, don't go against your spouse, like, we're just doing whatever. Like, have conversations. Bring other friends into it. You know, you've seen one of the families that helped us the most with this is the Rogers. You guys might know Andy and Jackie Rogers. Their kids, they have one kid that's a little bit older, which is always helpful because I think they were the first ones that we were at our house. We live like down the street from the grocery store, and we needed something. And Andy's like, "Let the boys go." I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, they're fine." I was like, "Are you sure?" It's like. Okay, and they walked to Vaughn's, they bought something, they came home, it's like, oh, cool, they can do that. So baby steps, they went together, didn't send him on his own. So different steps that you can take that can gradually build up to free range, whatever it is. 4 minutes. What are your best ideas for good play when it's blazing hot outside and you don't want to spend money? Yeah, God bless the San Fernando Valley. Yeah, it is hard, guys. Like it really is hard, especially like if you're in an apartment. Yeah. What's up? Library. Amen. We doesn't have to be outside, 100%. Yep. So board games, Sarians, like we play a lot of board games, and it's not even necessarily because Brad and Sarah love board games. It's just because this is a good thing to play around with the kids, right? So board games. We do art. Last night we did art. Again, we did Art for Kids Hub. We've been doing that for a long time, where you watch on a screen, but you're still creating. Like that's very different to me than TikTok, you know. And so we try to even utilize, if we are going to use screens, try to utilize them in good ways. Legos, games, but yeah, library. I mean, we go to the library every week. My daughter checks out her 30 books, and yeah, I mean, there's AC in the library, thank God. But get your kids reading, get your kids doing music, get them doing things that don't require a screen in front of their face. Again, this takes time, it is difficult, and there are going to be times, again, like, man, you're like, you know what, today's just one of those days, these kids are going to watch for a few hours, and I just need my sanity. So, okay, cool. Just don't let that be every single day. And so, yeah, it's definitely hard. Find somebody who has a pool and just live at their house and just say, can we just come over? Like, can we come over? And, yeah. How do you balance having limited access to your phone and getting the pictures of the kids outside? Great question. One of my favorite things about technology is pictures of kids. Like, I love that we have photos. I will say that I think most parents need to take less photos. Your kid is going to be okay if they don't have a photo every single time of them playing outside. And so if you're like, no, but we need a photo, take one photo, put the phone back inside. I think we are over-documenting way too much. And so, like when we go on vacation, and I'm like, Sarah and I even have our own different rules, so she takes a lot more pictures than I do. Like, we came back from vacation, I had like 5 photos. And here's the thing, though. Thank God she has more, and I'm grateful that she took more photos than I did, but my kids don't come back from the vacation and like, you only took 5 photos? It's like, oh yeah, Dad was on the swing and in the slide and all. Like, that's what's going to be more important to our kids than having the photos, where they're going to be like, oh yeah, I remember Dad just took 1,000 photos of me. Like, he wouldn't play with me. He just took a lot of photos of me. It's like, I'd rather be the dad who's like, I'm playing with you. Sorry, we didn't get photos, okay? So, yeah, I think if you have to err on the side of like, no phone, no photos, but playing, or we got all the photos and everything in slow-mo, it was awesome. Like, I'd err on that side. Where do we get your other rules? Email me, brad@restoredla.com. I'll send you my other rules. What are your best ideas? One more minute, last one. What are your best ideas for good play? Yep, we already did that. Last one. Do you think there's more to what you watch versus that you're watching? The shows we or children watch are more overstimulating, fast-paced than in the past. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of these kids' shows. I'm like, what is happening right now? It is chaotic, and so I think it is. I think it's part of it. I don't think it's everything, but it is certainly part of it. And I think that was the difference between I'm even more okay with my kids watching television up there than scrolling on the phone watching YouTube. There's just something different, man, to our brains. It's just so, it's like, oh, I'm bored. It's like, all right, we're going to watch this show. But yeah, a lot of the shows are very, very stimulating. And so I think that's part of the issue. Let me pray for us. Oh, I'll say this real fast. I did see that. I did email the teacher. What about wherever it went? I did email the teacher about playing the Cat's Eye song and the dancing. I just emailed the principal. I was like, hey, this is crazy. This needs to stop. It was like the last week of school. I didn't get a response. And I was like, all right, we'll see you later. So, but yeah, you as a teacher, as a parent, you are an advocate. You need to be speaking up for your kids, not just for my kids. I even said, my kids won't go to the school another week. I don't really care if they play Cat's Eye for the next 5 days. For the other kids, this needs to stop. So let me pray.